Some burdens do not feel heavy in the morning because the daylight gives you something to hide behind. You answer messages, you handle responsibilities, you smile when you need to, you keep moving because movement makes the pain quieter. But when night comes, when the room grows still, when the world stops pulling at you, the mind begins to open the doors you tried to keep closed. The old worry returns. The unfinished pain speaks again. The memory you thought you had buried sits beside you like it never left. And this is where so many people lose their rest. Not because the night is cruel, but because the mind has never been taught how to lay down what the heart has carried for too long. You keep holding conversations that ended years ago. You keep explaining yourself to people who are no longer listening. You keep punishing yourself for moments you cannot return to. You keep carrying things that were only meant to pass through you, not live inside you. The Stoics understood this quiet suffering. They knew that a person could be lying in bed and still be chained to 100 invisible battles. They taught that peace begins when you stop arguing with what you cannot change. That freedom begins when you stop giving your thoughts permission to drag you back into every wound. That rest is not weakness. Rest is discipline. Rest is wisdom. Rest is the moment you tell your mind, enough for tonight. So tonight, this is your release. You are not here to solve your whole life before morning. You are not here to carry every regret, every fear, every mistake, every person, every loss, and every unanswered question into your sleep. You are here to put it down, gently, quietly, completely. 4 hours to loosen the grip of the past. 4 hours to stop carrying what has been crushing your spirit. 4 hours to let the stoic mind become still, so the tired body can finally remember how to sleep. And as the body begins to ask for rest, the mind may still be reaching backward, gathering every piece of life it believes it must carry. But before sleep can truly take you, one quiet truth must be seen clearly. Not everything that became heavy in your heart was ever yours to fix. Some burdens enter your life so quietly that you do not notice the moment they become part of you. A parent's sadness, a friend's disappointment, a relationship that kept asking you to understand more than it ever tried to understand you, a mistake someone else made, but somehow you became the one staying awake, trying to repair the damage. At first, it feels like kindness. It feels like loyalty. It feels like being a good person. You tell yourself, if I care enough, maybe I can make this better. But slowly, care becomes carrying. Carrying becomes pressure. Pressure becomes exhaustion. And exhaustion becomes the life you start calling normal. This is one reason the mind struggles to sleep. The body lies down, but the heart is still standing in front of problems it cannot solve. You close your eyes, but somewhere inside, you are still trying to rescue someone from their own choices. You are still trying to explain your heart to people who have already decided not to understand it. You are still trying to hold together something that keeps breaking itself apart. And because your intentions are good, you blame yourself when peace does not come. But a sincere heart does not mean every burden belongs to you. Just because you love someone does not mean their healing is your assignment. Just because you see someone's pain does not mean you must become the place where they leave it. Just because you are strong does not mean you were created to carry what others refuse to face. Strength without wisdom becomes a quiet prison, and many people are not tired because they are weak. They are tired because they have been loyal to weights that were never theirs. The Stoics understood this clearly. They taught that suffering grows when we confuse what is ours with what belongs to others, to time, or to fate. Your choices are yours. Your actions are yours. Your attitude is yours. Your response is yours. But another person's honesty is not yours. Their maturity is not yours. Their apology is not yours. Their decision to change is not yours. Their ability to see your value is not yours. When you forget this, your mind becomes a crowded room filled with other people's unfinished lessons. And maybe this is why you feel so heavy at night. Not because you have failed, but because you have been carrying too many things that were never meant to live inside you. You have been the bridge, the healer, the peacekeeper, the patient one, the understanding one, the quiet one, the one who adjusts, the one who swallows pain so nobody else feels uncomfortable. You may have been praised for how much you can handle. People may have called you dependable. They may have said you are strong. But being needed by many people is not the same as being at peace within yourself. There is a tiredness that sleep alone cannot fix. It is the tiredness of being responsible for too many emotions that are not yours. It is the tiredness of watching your own needs disappear under the weight of other people's storms. It is the tiredness of being afraid that if you stop carrying everything, everything will fall apart. But sometimes what falls apart after you stop carrying it was only standing because you kept sacrificing yourself. Tonight, the Stoic path asks you to ask one simple question. Is this truly mine? Not, do I feel guilty about it? Not, will someone be angry if I release it? Not, have I carried it for so long that it feels like part of me? But, is this mine to control, mine to repair, mine to answer for, mine to carry into sleep? That question can free more of your mind than another hour of overthinking ever could. Because many burdens lose power when they are named correctly. Some things are not your duty. They are someone else's lesson. Some things are not your failure. They are life unfolding beyond your control. Some things are not your shame. They are old pain asking to be released, not carried into another night. The mind may resist this. It may whisper, if I stop worrying, does that mean I do not care? But worry is not proof of love. Sleeplessness is not proof of loyalty. Suffering is not proof that you are a good person. You can care without carrying. You can love without losing yourself. You can wish someone well without walking beside them into every storm they create. You can release a burden and still have a kind heart. This is where real mental release begins. Not by becoming cold, not by pretending nothing matters, but by giving each matter its proper place. The Stoic does not become heartless. The Stoic becomes clear. Clear enough to know that peace cannot survive where guilt is allowed to rule the mind. Clear enough to know that your life cannot become a shelter for every person who refuses to build their own. Clear enough to understand that some doors remain closed, not because you failed, but because they were never yours to open. Think of how many nights have been stolen by things you could not change, words already spoken, choices already made, people already gone, situations already beyond your reach. The mind returns to them as if another hour of thinking will create another ending. But night is not a workshop for rebuilding the past. Night is a sanctuary for returning to yourself. And you cannot return to yourself while carrying everyone else with you. So let this truth settle softly. You are allowed to put down what never belonged to your hands. You are allowed to stop being the silent container for every problem around you. You are allowed to admit that something hurt, while also admitting it is not yours to fix. You are allowed to rest before every question has an answer. You are allowed to sleep while life remains unfinished. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop confusing care with self-abandonment. It means you stop turning your heart into a storage room for other people's chaos. It means you stop allowing guilt to decide what your nervous system must carry. It means you begin to protect the quiet space inside you where peace is supposed to live. And tonight, as the world grows quiet, you do not need to solve every life around you. You do not need to replay what you should have said, what you should have done, who you should have saved, or how things could have been different. You can breathe, you can soften, you can let the weight slide from your mind, not with anger, but with understanding. Say to yourself gently, I return what is not mine. I keep only what wisdom has given me. I release what guilt has placed on me. I have done enough for today. And if the burden rises again, do not fight it. See it. Name it. Let it pass. Remind it. You are not mine to carry tonight. Because sleep comes easier to the person who stops trying to hold the whole world together in the dark. Rest returns when the mind accepts its true limits. Peace begins when you stop carrying what was never yours to fix. And once you begin to return what was never yours to carry, another weight reveals itself in the quiet. It is not always the burden of fixing people. Sometimes it is the burden of still arguing with what already happened. The body lies down, but the mind stands up again, walks back into the past, and tries to win a conversation that is already over. There is a strange pain that comes from remembering what you should have said too late. The room becomes quiet, the lights go low, the day ends. But suddenly the mind begins speaking with the voice it did not have then. It builds perfect replies. It sharpens old sentences. It reopens the moment and says, "This time I will defend myself better. This time I will make them understand. This time I will prove I was not wrong." And before you know it, you are no longer in bed. You are back in that old room, that old message, that old silence, that old disrespect, that old wound. This is how sleep gets pushed away, not by noise outside, but by the court inside. The mind becomes a judge, a witness, a lawyer, and a prisoner all at once. It keeps presenting evidence. It keeps calling memories to the stand. It keeps asking the past to explain itself. And the body, which only wanted rest, is forced to sit through another trial. But the past does not answer fairly. It does not return because you thought of a stronger sentence. It does not become gentle because you finally know how to explain your pain. It does not apologize because your mind stayed awake long enough to build the perfect argument. This is one of the hardest truths to accept at night. Some arguments cannot be won because they are no longer happening anywhere except inside you. The Stoics understood this kind of suffering deeply. They knew that a person could lose the same battle many times without anyone else being present, not because the event is still occurring, but because the mind keeps giving it fresh life. A harsh word spoken years ago can still injure the spirit tonight if the mind keeps treating it like a current threat. A misunderstanding can still steal your sleep if you keep returning to it, as if the right explanation will finally set you free. But freedom does not come from winning old arguments. Freedom comes from leaving the courtroom. There are people who will never understand what they did to you. There are moments that will never be corrected. There are conversations that ended badly and will remain that way. There are people who heard your truth and still chose their own version. There are situations where you were right, but being right did not protect you from pain. And if you wait for the past to admit this before you rest, your sleep will always be held hostage by something that cannot speak back. This does not mean your pain is small. It does not mean you should pretend the words did not hurt. It does not mean you should excuse cruelty, disrespect, betrayal, or unfairness. Stoic peace is not denial. It is not forcing yourself to smile at what wounded you. It is the quiet strength to say, "This happened. It hurt. I saw it. I learned from it. But I will not keep spending my nights trying to defeat a shadow." Old arguments are heavy because they make the mind believe that peace is still hidden inside the person who hurt you. You may think, if only they understood, I could rest. If only they admitted it, I could move on. If only I had said one more thing, I would feel free. But this is where the mind becomes trapped. It places the key to your peace inside someone else's hands, then wonders why the door never opens. The Stoic path brings the key back to you. It reminds you that your peace cannot depend on another person's fairness. Your sleep cannot wait for someone's maturity. Your inner world cannot be ruled by whether another person sees your side. You may never receive the perfect apology. You may never hear the words you deserved. You may never be understood by the person you wanted most to understand you. But even then, your mind can still come home. At night, the mind often tries to win old arguments because it is searching for safety. It thinks that if it can rewrite the past, it can prevent future pain. It thinks that if it studies every word, every look, every silence, it will never be caught unprepared again. But overthinking is not always wisdom. Sometimes it is fear wearing the clothes of preparation. Sometimes it is the nervous system saying, I do not want to be powerless again. So speak to that part of yourself with gentleness. Do not attack the mind for replaying the argument. It is trying to protect you in the only way it knows. But tonight, teach it something new. Tell it, we are not there anymore. We do not need to defend ourselves in that room again. We survived that moment. We are safe enough to release it now. This is how the old battle begins to lose its grip. Not through force, but through clarity. You do not push the thought away with anger. You observe it. You name it. You see the argument rising, and instead of entering it, you stand outside it. You say, this is an old conversation. This is an old wound. This is my mind asking for justice from a place that cannot give it. And then you return to the breath, to the body, to the quiet, to the present moment where nothing needs to be proven. There is deep humility in this, because the ego wants to win. The ego wants the final word. The ego wants to be seen as right, innocent, strong, misunderstood, or victorious. But the soul wants peace, and many nights you must choose between giving the ego another argument or giving the soul permission to sleep. The final word is not always spoken out loud. Sometimes the final word is silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of release. The silence that says, I no longer need to keep bleeding to prove I was hurt. The silence that says, I do not need to replay this to protect my truth. The silence that says, what happened is part of my story, but it does not get to own my night. And this is where sleep begins, not when everything is resolved, not when every person apologizes, not when every memory becomes painless. Sleep begins when the mind stops believing it must win before it can rest. Sleep begins when you stop treating the past like an enemy that must be defeated tonight. Sleep begins when you accept that peace is not found in the perfect reply, but in the decision to stop replying inside your own head. So tonight, if an old argument rises, do not follow it all the way back into pain. Let it appear. Let it speak for a moment. Then gently remind yourself, this is not happening now. I do not need to win this tonight. I choose rest over being right in a memory. Let the shoulders soften. Let the jaw loosen. Let the hands open. Let the mind step away from the old room, the old voice, the old message, the old wound. You have already spent enough life defending yourself to people who were not listening. You do not need to spend another night doing it alone. The Stoic release is simple but powerful. What is past is no longer yours to fight. What is outside your control is no longer yours to chase. What cannot be changed must not be allowed to command your sleep. You can carry the lesson without carrying the argument. You can remember what happened without returning to battle. You can honor your pain without giving it the whole night. And as you let go of the need to win, something inside you begins to unclench. The mind grows less sharp. The breath grows deeper. The body realizes it is no longer being called to war. The night becomes softer. The bed becomes safe again. And slowly, quietly, peace enters the space where the argument used to live. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not answer back. It is not prove your point. It is not reopen the wound for one more chance at victory. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is close the case, release the person, release the scene, release the sentence you never got to say, and let sleep take you where the past cannot follow. And as the old arguments begin to lose their voice, another quiet practice waits for you at the edge of the night. Because it is not enough to stop fighting the past. You must also learn how to put down what the day has placed in your hands before it follows you into sleep. Every evening gives the soul a choice: carry the whole day into the darkness, or return each burden to where it belongs. There is a moment before sleep when the heart reveals what it has been hiding. During the day you can distract yourself. You can stay busy. You can answer one more message, finish one more task, help one more person, solve one more small problem. But when nightfall comes, the weight begins to speak. The disappointment you ignored, the worry you pushed aside, the pressure you pretended was not there, the sadness you swallowed because there was no time to feel it. It all waits for quiet. And this is why so many people do not fall asleep. They collapse. Their body reaches the bed like a person reaching the end of a long road, but the mind is still carrying bags it never unpacked. A careless word from someone, a fear about tomorrow, a memory from years ago, a responsibility that followed them home, a small failure that grew larger in the dark. The body wants to rest, but the inner world is still crowded. The Stoic art of putting down emotional burdens before nightfall begins with one honest act: admitting what you are carrying, not judging it, not fighting it, not pretending it should not be there, just noticing. This is worry, this is guilt, this is anger, this is sadness, this is pressure, this is fear. When the mind names the burden becomes less invisible, and what becomes visible can finally be released. Many people suffer at night because they never give the day a proper ending. They leave every emotion open. They carry every conversation forward. They let every unfinished task become proof that they are behind in life. But the day does not need to be perfect before it can be complete. A day can end with unanswered messages. A day can end with unresolved tension. A day can end with mistakes, delays, silence, and uncertainty. Completion does not mean everything is fixed. Completion means you stop dragging today into the hours meant for healing. The Stoics practiced reflection, but not the kind that punishes the mind. They looked at the day with calm eyes. They asked, "Where did I act with wisdom? Where did I lose my balance? What can I learn? What must I release?" This is different from overthinking. Overthinking repeats pain without direction. Reflection gathers wisdom and then lets the rest go. One keeps you awake, the other prepares you for peace. Before nightfall, you must learn to sort your burdens. Some burdens are lessons. Keep the lesson. Some burdens are warnings. Respect the warning. Some burdens are emotions that need tenderness. Give them space. But some burdens are only noise. Some are old fears pretending to be urgent. Some are other people's moods. Some are imagined futures. Some are memories looking for a place to live. These do not deserve your whole night. There is a quiet strength in saying, "This can wait." Not because it is unimportant, but because your mind is not meant to work without end. Even the sun goes down. Even the world grows dark. Even the body lowers its rhythm. Nature itself teaches rest by withdrawing from effort. But the modern mind keeps glowing like a screen that never turns off. It thinks peace must be earned by solving everything first. But Stoic wisdom says, peace begins when you respect your limits. You are not a machine. You are not a storage room for every emotional demand. You are not a battlefield where every worry must be fought before morning. You are a human being with a soul that needs quiet. And if you never place a boundary between the day and the night, the day will keep walking into your sleep, wearing different names. So tonight, before the darkness becomes heavy, create an inner ritual of release. Not complicated, not dramatic, just sincere. Look back at the day once, gently. Let the mind show you what it is holding. Then decide what belongs in your hands and what must be placed down. Maybe you made a mistake. Learn from it, but do not become it. Maybe someone disappointed you. Feel the sting, but do not let their behavior become your bedtime prayer. Maybe tomorrow feels uncertain. Prepare what you can, but do not spend the night living inside a future that has not arrived. This is where many people misunderstand strength. They think strength is carrying more, staying available, answering every demand, thinking through every possible problem. But sometimes strength is the discipline to stop, to close the door, to say, I have given this day what I could, I will not give it my sleep too. That sentence may feel small, but it is powerful. It teaches the mind that rest is not abandonment. Rest is recovery. Emotional burdens often stay heavy because we keep touching them. We pick them up again and again, checking if they still hurt. We replay the tone, the look, the message, the mistake, the worry. We tell ourselves we are trying to understand, but sometimes the mind is not seeking understanding. It is seeking control. It wants to hold the burden tightly because releasing it feels like losing power. But holding pain does not give you power over what happened. It only gives what happened more power over you. The Stoic does not say, nothing hurts me. The Stoic says, this hurts, but it will not rule me. That is the difference. You do not have to deny your emotions to put them down. You do not have to pretend you are fine. You can say, I am hurt, and still choose not to carry that hurt into every breath. You can say, I am worried, and still choose not to make your bed a place of fear. You can say, I am tired, and finally allow tiredness to be met with rest instead of more pressure. Nightfall is sacred because it gives you a chance to return to yourself. The world may have pulled you in many directions, but sleep asks you to gather back your spirit. It asks you to stop leaking energy into things you cannot change right now. It asks you to stop standing guard over problems that will still exist tomorrow, whether you worry tonight or not. It asks you to trust that not every burden requires your attention in the dark. There is wisdom in leaving some things at the edge of the evening. The conversation can wait. The decision can wait. The apology can wait. The plan can wait. The fear can wait. The unanswered question can wait. What cannot wait forever is your peace. What cannot keep being postponed is your body's need to soften. What cannot survive endless carrying is the quiet part of you that still wants to feel safe inside your own life. So before sleep, breathe as if you are unloading the day. With every exhale, release one thing. Release the need to be perfect. Release the pressure to understand everything. Release the guilt of not doing more. Release the anger that has already taken enough from you. Release the fear that tomorrow must be solved tonight. Release the hidden belief that rest must be earned through suffering. Say gently within yourself, this day is complete. Not perfect, but complete. I take the lesson. I release the weight. I keep my peace. I return to myself. And if the burden returns, do not be angry. Some weights have been carried for so long that they do not know how to leave immediately. Meet them with patience. The mind learns release the way the body learns breathing in sleep. softly, slowly, through repetition. Each night you put the burden down, you teach your inner world that it does not have to live in survival. Each night you stop carrying the day into the dark, you make room for deeper rest. This is the Stoic art before nightfall: to review without drowning, to feel without clinging, to learn without punishment, to care without carrying, and to end the day without letting the day end you. Because sleep does not come only from closing the eyes. Sleep comes from closing the emotional doors that have been left open too long. It comes when the mind understands that the day has had its time, the burden has had its voice, and the soul is allowed to be quiet now. Tonight, put it down before it follows you into the dark, not because it never mattered, but because your rest matters too. And after you learn to put the day down before nightfall, another truth begins to appear. Sometimes the burden is not only in the mind. Sometimes the body has been listening to every thought, every fear, every old defense, and it has forgotten how to feel safe. You may lie still in bed, but deep inside, something is still bracing, still watching, still preparing for a battle that is no longer in the room. There is a kind of tiredness that does not come from walking, working, or doing too much. It comes from defending yourself for too long, defending your worth, defending your choices, defending your silence, defending your past, defending why you feel the way you feel, defending your heart against people who misunderstood it, defending your peace against memories that keep returning with the same sharp edge. And the body hears all of this. The shoulders tighten, the jaw locks, the stomach turns, the breath becomes shallow, the hands hold tension without knowing why. The eyes close, but the nervous system stays awake like a guard at the gate. This is why rest does not always come when you are exhausted. The body may be tired, but if the mind still feels attacked, sleep becomes difficult. The body does not rest deeply in a place where the mind still believes it must protect itself. Many people enter the night still defending themselves from things that happened long ago, a criticism that made them question their value, a betrayal that made them afraid to trust, a rejection that made them feel small, a mistake that made them believe they must keep proving they are better now, a childhood wound that taught them to stay alert, because peace could be interrupted at any moment. And so, even in a quiet room, the mind acts as if someone is about to accuse you again. It prepares explanations, it prepares excuses, it prepares proof, it prepares for judgment. It says, what if they think badly of me? What if I was wrong? What if I should have done more? What if I am not enough? And each question becomes a signal to the body. Stay awake, stay ready, stay guarded. But tonight, the Stoic path asks you to see the difference between protection and imprisonment. There was a time when defending yourself may have helped you survive. There were moments when your mind had to stay alert, had to read people's moods, had to choose words carefully, had to prepare for disappointment before it arrived. But what once protected you can become the very thing that keeps you from resting. A shield held too long becomes a burden. A defense used every night becomes a wall between you and peace. The Stoics believed that inner freedom begins when you stop giving outside events the power to rule your inner state. This does not mean you become careless. It does not mean you allow disrespect. It does not mean you stop having boundaries. It means you stop letting every memory, every opinion, every possible judgment pull your body back into battle. It means you begin to tell your nervous system, we are not in danger right now. We do not need to keep proving our right to exist. There is something deeply painful about living as if you are always on trial. You explain yourself before anyone asks. You apologize before you know you did wrong. You shrink before anyone criticizes you. You rehearse conversations before they happen. You expect rejection before it arrives. You scan the silence for hidden meaning. You treat every delay, every tone, every unanswered message as a sign that something is wrong. And then night comes, and the body cannot rest because it has spent the entire day obeying fear. But peace begins when you stop mistaking every thought for a threat. A thought can rise without being true. A memory can return without being a command. A fear can speak without becoming your master. The mind may say, "You must defend yourself," but wisdom can answer, "Not tonight, not from shadows, not from old pain, not from people who are not here." This is the quiet power of Stoic mental release. You do not argue with the thought. You do not wrestle it to the floor. You do not shame yourself for having it. You simply notice it and separate yourself from it. This is fear. This is old defense. This is my mind trying to protect me. This is not my present reality. Once you can name what is happening inside you, you no longer have to become it. The body needs that clarity. The body needs the mind to stop shouting danger where there is only memory. It needs permission to unclench. It needs to know the past is not standing beside the bed. It needs to feel that this moment is different from the moments that trained you to be guarded. Your bed is not a battlefield. Your pillow is not a witness stand. Your silence is not an accusation. Your night is not an enemy. So let the defense soften. Let the need to explain loosen. Let the old habit of proving yourself grow quiet. You do not need to defend your pain tonight. You do not need to defend your limits. You do not need to defend the version of you that survived what others never saw. You do not need to prepare a speech for people who may never understand the cost of what you carried. There is a deep rest that becomes possible when you stop asking the body to stand guard over your worth. Your worth does not need a defense team. Your life does not need to be explained to every mind that questions it. Your healing does not need approval from those who only knew you when you were wounded. Your growth does not need to be proven to people committed to remembering your old mistakes. The Stoic does not chase every opinion. The Stoic does not surrender peace to every misunderstanding. The Stoic does not treat every insult as a command to react. The Stoic asks, "Is this within my control?" If it is, act with wisdom. If it is not, release the need to fight it inside your body. Because sometimes the battle is not happening outside you anymore. It is happening in the muscles, in the breath, in the tight chest, in the restless mind that still believes it must be ready for pain. Tonight, give your body a different message. Tell it, you do not have to hold this shape anymore. Let the forehead soften. Let the tongue rest. Let the jaw release. Let the shoulders fall away from the ears. Let the chest open slowly. Let the stomach stop bracing against tomorrow. Let the hands stop holding invisible weapons. Let the legs become heavy. Let the breath become less like survival and more like surrender. Not surrender to defeat, surrender to safety. Because safety is not always something life gives you first. Sometimes safety is something you begin to practice inside yourself. You practice it by refusing to attack yourself with old thoughts. You practice it by refusing to rehearse every possible criticism. You practice it by telling the truth gently. I am here now. I am breathing now. I am not in that room. I am not in that argument. I am not under that judgment. I am allowed to rest. And if the mind tries again to defend, let it try without following it. Let the thought rise like a wave and fall like a wave. You do not have to answer every accusation your own mind creates. You do not have to respond to every fear. You do not have to pick up the shield just because the old habit says battle is near. There is wisdom in doing nothing when nothing needs to be done. There is courage in silence when the ego wants to explain. There is strength in resting when fear says you must prepare. The body learns peace through repeated permission. Each night you stop defending yourself in the dark, the body learns that stillness is safe. Each time you choose breath over argument, the body learns that not every feeling is a danger. Each time you release the need to prove, the body remembers that rest is possible. So tonight, do not ask your body to sleep while your mind is still at war. First, lower the weapon. Step away from the inner trial. Stop preparing answers for people who are not in the room. Stop defending a soul that has already survived enough. Say softly, I am not on trial tonight. I do not need to prove my heart. I do not need to fight old shadows. My body is allowed to rest because this moment is safe enough for peace. And as those words settle, let the body believe them slowly. Let sleep come not as something you force, but as something you stop blocking with defense. The mind does not need to win. The body does not need to guard. The night does not need to be feared. Because your body can finally rest when your mind stops treating peace like a place that must be defended. And after the mind stops defending itself, another deeper layer begins to appear. Because sometimes what keeps you awake is not only fear, not only old arguments, not only other people's burdens. Sometimes it is the quiet belief that you must keep punishing yourself to prove you care. You lie down at night, but instead of resting, the mind begins to measure everything you did wrong, everything you did not finish, every person you may have disappointed, every place where you feel you should have been stronger. This kind of suffering is dangerous because it disguises itself as responsibility. There is a pain that comes from knowing you must do better. That pain can be useful. It can guide you. It can correct you. It can make you wiser. But there is another pain that does not guide anything. It only repeats the same sentence again and again. You failed. You should have known. You should have done more. You should have been better. That is not responsibility. That is inner punishment. And many tired minds cannot tell the difference. Real responsibility has direction. It says, this happened. What can I learn? What can I repair? What can I do differently next time? It looks at life with clear eyes and takes the next wise step. But unnecessary inner punishment has no direction. It does not help you grow. It does not help you heal. It does not help anyone you hurt. It only keeps you trapped in the feeling of being wrong, even after the lesson has already been received. The Stoics understood that the wise person must examine the self, but not destroy the self. They believed in correction, not cruelty. They believed in discipline, not self-hatred. They believed that a person should look honestly at their actions, but not turn the mind into a whip. Because once the lesson is clear, continued suffering does not make you more responsible. It only makes you more exhausted. There is a quiet difference between saying, I made a mistake, and saying, I am the mistake. One gives you room to grow. The other locks your identity inside one moment. One keeps your dignity alive. The other teaches the body to fear your own thoughts. And at night, this difference matters deeply, because the body cannot rest when the mind is treating the self like an enemy. Maybe there are things you regret, words you spoke too quickly, chances you missed, people you did not know how to love properly at the time, decisions you made from fear, silence you kept when you should have spoken, moments where you were careless, tired, immature, confused, or overwhelmed. These things may be real, but the question is not whether they happened. The question is whether punishing yourself tonight will make anything whole. If repair is possible, choose repair. If apology is needed, offer it with humility. If change is required, begin quietly and consistently. If a lesson has been shown to you, receive it fully. But once you have taken the honest step, do not keep dragging your soul back into the same fire. Responsibility asks for action. Punishment asks for endless pain. Responsibility builds a new path. Punishment keeps you kneeling in the old one. Many people stay awake because they believe peace must be earned by suffering first. They think, how can I sleep when I made mistakes? How can I rest when something is still unresolved? How can I feel calm when I did not do everything perfectly? But this belief turns life into a prison. If you wait to be flawless before you rest, you will never rest. If you wait until every person understands you, forgives you, approves of you, and feels satisfied with you, your peace will always be outside your control. The Stoic mind does not demand perfection before sleep. It demands honesty. It asks you to see clearly, correct what is yours, release what is not, and stop adding unnecessary suffering to what already hurts. There is no wisdom in striking the same bruise every night. There is no virtue in replaying your weakness until your body forgets how to soften. There is no healing in becoming cruel to yourself in the name of growth. Real responsibility feels calm even when it is serious. It may feel heavy for a moment, but beneath it there is clarity. It says, I know what must be done. Inner punishment feels restless. It circles. It accuses. It brings no clear next step. It keeps opening the same wound without cleaning it. It makes the mind feel busy, but nothing is actually being healed. That is why you must learn to ask, is this helping me become better, or is it only making me suffer? This question can separate wisdom from torment. If a thought leads you to a sincere apology, a better habit, a truthful conversation, a needed boundary, or a clearer choice, then it may be responsibility. But if a thought only makes you feel smaller, heavier, ashamed and trapped, with no useful action attached, then it is punishment wearing the mask of morality. And some minds have been trained to accept punishment as normal. Maybe you grew up around harsh voices. Maybe love came with criticism. Maybe mistakes were treated like proof that you were not good enough. Maybe you learned early that peace would be taken from you unless you performed perfectly. So now, even as an adult, your own mind continues the work of those old voices. It corrects you without kindness. It watches you without mercy. It reminds you of your flaws as if fear is the only way to keep you from failing again. But fear is a poor teacher when it is never allowed to rest. A person grows better through awareness, humility, patience, and repeated wise action, not through endless self-attack. The strongest people are not those who never make mistakes. They are those who can face themselves without lying and still remain gentle enough to continue. They do not hide from responsibility, but they also do not confuse responsibility with emotional violence against the self. Tonight, you are allowed to review your life without becoming cruel. You are allowed to admit where you fell short, without turning that moment into your whole identity. You are allowed to say, I could have done better, without adding, I am worthless. You are allowed to feel regret without building a home inside it. You are allowed to learn from pain without carrying pain as a punishment. This is not weakness. This is maturity. Because a mind that only punishes eventually becomes too tired to change. But a mind that is guided with truth and steadiness can grow for a lifetime. The Stoics knew this. They did not ask us to avoid self-examination. They asked us to examine ourselves with discipline, not despair. To look at the day, take the lesson, correct the course, and then let the night be night. So before sleep, ask yourself gently, what is truly mine to take responsibility for? Keep the answer simple. Maybe it is your tone, maybe it is your reaction, maybe it is your delay, maybe it is your habit, maybe it is your refusal to listen, maybe it is your fear of speaking honestly. If it is yours, accept it without running. Then ask, what wise step can I take? Not 10 steps, not the whole future, just one honest step. Then ask the second question. What am I using to punish myself that no longer teaches me anything? This is where release begins. Maybe you keep replaying a mistake from years ago, even though you are no longer that person. Maybe you keep carrying guilt for not knowing then what you know now. Maybe you keep blaming yourself for choices you made while confused, hurting, young, afraid, or unsupported. Maybe you keep holding yourself responsible for outcomes you could not fully control. Put those down tonight. You can honor the lesson without carrying the lash. You can become wiser without staying wounded. You can be accountable without being cruel to yourself. You can change without hating who you used to be. This is one of the gentlest forms of Stoic strength. To stand before your own life with honesty in one hand and mercy in the other. And when the mind tries to accuse you again, answer calmly, I have heard the lesson. I will take the action that is mine. I will not continue the punishment that serves nothing. Let that sentence become a doorway out of shame, a doorway out of restless regret, a doorway out of the belief that you must suffer all night to prove you are serious about becoming better. The night is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to be honest enough to release what no longer helps. Your body does not need another trial. Your mind does not need another sentence. Your soul does not need to be locked inside yesterday's mistake. So breathe softly and let responsibility become clear. Keep what teaches, release what tortures. Keep what guides, release what crushes. Keep what belongs to your next wise action. Release what only keeps you awake in pain. Say to yourself, I accept what is mine. I will correct what I can. I release the punishment that no longer serves wisdom. I am allowed to grow without destroying myself. And as this truth settles, the mind begins to loosen. The body feels less accused. The heart feels less trapped. Sleep becomes possible because you are no longer standing over yourself with judgment. You are walking beside yourself with wisdom, because real responsibility helps you rise. Unnecessary inner punishment only keeps you from resting. And tonight, you are not here to suffer your way into worthiness. You are here to learn, to soften, to release, and to sleep. And after you separate real responsibility from unnecessary inner punishment, another truth begins to rise in the quiet. Sometimes the pain you carry is not there because the moment is still happening. It is there because the mind has not yet understood that the moment has ended. The event passed. The words were spoken. The person left. The disappointment happened. The wound was made. But inside you, something still sits beside it, holding it like proof, like warning, like identity. There are wounds that end in the world long before they end in the body. A painful conversation may have lasted only minutes, but the echo can stay for years. A rejection may have happened once, but the fear it awakened can follow you into every new room. A betrayal may belong to the past, but the watchfulness it created may still sleep beside you. This is why pain can feel so fresh, long after the moment has passed. The calendar moved forward, but the nervous system did not receive the message. And this is not because you are weak. It is because the mind often carries pain as a form of protection. It says, do not forget this. Do not relax too much. Do not trust too quickly. Do not open your heart without checking the exits. Remember what happened last time. So what began as pain slowly becomes armor. And because armor feels safer than softness, you keep wearing it, even when it is too heavy for sleep. The Stoics understood that what hurts us is not only the event itself, but the meaning we continue to give it. A person may insult you once, but if your mind turns that insult into a lifelong belief about your worth, the wound keeps growing. Someone may abandon you, but if your mind turns that abandonment into proof that you are not enough, the pain becomes larger than the person who caused it. Something may go wrong, but if your mind decides that life will always betray you, then one moment becomes a lens through which you see everything. This is why carrying pain can become so dangerous. It does not stay in its original shape. It spreads. It enters your thoughts. It changes how you breathe. It decides how close people can come. It makes you suspicious of peace. It teaches you to expect disappointment before joy has a chance to arrive. And at night, when the body grows still, that old pain speaks the loudest because there is no noise left to cover it. You may think you are remembering, but sometimes you are reliving. Remembering says, "This happened." Reliving says, "This is still happening to me." Remembering carries wisdom. Reliving carries panic. Remembering allows the lesson to remain while the body returns to the present. Reliving pulls the whole self back into the wound, as if time has not moved at all. And many sleepless nights come from this hidden confusion. The moment passed, but the mind keeps returning to it, hoping to understand it enough to make it stop hurting. It studies the details, the exact words, the silence after, the look on someone's face, the thing you missed, the thing you should have known, the moment everything changed. But pain does not always release itself through more analysis. Some pain is not asking to be solved. It is asking to be felt, understood, and finally allowed to leave. There is a difference between honoring your pain and building your life around it. To honor pain is to say, "This mattered, this shaped me, this taught me something." To build your life around pain is to say, "Because this happened, I must never be free again." One gives dignity to what you survived. The other gives the wound a permanent seat at the center of your life. And maybe part of you fears that if you stop carrying the pain, you will be saying it did not matter. Maybe you fear that releasing it means excusing the person, forgetting the damage, or betraying the version of yourself that suffered. But release is not denial. Release is not saying, "It was nothing." Release is saying, "It was something, but it will not be everything." It is saying, "This changed me, but it will not own me." It is saying, "I can keep the wisdom without keeping the weight." The Stoic mind learns to ask, what part of this pain is still useful, and what part has become a chain? This is a powerful question, because not all pain is useless. Some pain teaches boundaries. Some pain teaches discernment. Some pain shows you where you abandoned yourself. Some pain reveals what you must never ignore again. But once the lesson has been received, carrying the raw wound every night does not make you wiser. It only keeps your inner world bleeding. There comes a time when you must separate the lesson from the suffering. The lesson may be, "I need to trust actions more than words." The suffering says, "No one can ever be trusted." The lesson may be, "I must speak up sooner." The suffering says, "My voice does not matter." The lesson may be, "I should choose people with more care." The suffering says, "Love is always unsafe." The lesson makes you clearer. The suffering makes you smaller. The lesson protects your future. The suffering imprisons your present. This is why pain can remain long after the moment has passed, because the lesson and the wound have become tangled together. You think that if you let go of the wound, you will lose the lesson. But wisdom does not require constant pain to stay alive. A scar can remind you without reopening every night. A memory can guide you without becoming a storm. A lesson can stay with you quietly without demanding your sleep as payment. At night, old pain often returns because the mind wants recognition. It wants someone to say, "Yes, that hurt. Yes, you carried too much. Yes, you were not treated fairly. Yes, you deserve gentleness there." So give yourself that recognition. Do not wait for the person who hurt you to validate the wound before you allow it to heal. Do not wait for the past to become kind before you become kind to yourself. You can witness your own pain without drowning in it. Say to yourself, I know this hurt me. I know I carried it longer than anyone saw. I know it changed how I moved through the world. But I am here now. The moment has passed. I do not have to keep living as if it is still touching me. Those words matter because the body needs permission to leave the old scene. The body may still be holding the tension of a moment that ended years ago. It may still brace when there is no danger. It may still tighten when there is only memory. It may still expect loss when nothing is being taken. So speak to the body gently. Tell it, we survived that. We are not there tonight. We can rest now. And if the pain does not disappear immediately, do not call that failure. Release is not always a single moment. Sometimes it is a practice, a returning, a soft decision made again and again. Each night you loosen the grip a little. Each night you choose not to feed the memory with new fear. Each night you remind yourself that the wound may be part of your story, but it is not the whole story. The Stoic does not demand that the heart become untouched. The Stoic understands that life will leave marks, but the Stoic also knows that every mark does not need to become a master. Pain may visit the mind, but it does not have to command the night. Memory may rise, but it does not have to become identity. The past may speak, but it does not have the final authority over your peace. So tonight, let the old moment be old. Let the past return to its proper place. Let the wound stop pretending it is still happening. You do not need to carry pain to prove you survived it. You do not need to stay tense to honor what happened. You do not need to keep hurting to make the lesson real. Breathe slowly and say, I keep the wisdom. I release the weight. I remember without reliving. I honor what happened without letting it hold me hostage. The moment has passed, and I am allowed to pass beyond it too. And as the words settle, let the mind stop reaching backward. Let the body stop guarding a door that is no longer open. Let the heart feel the difference between memory and danger. Let the night become a place where pain is not denied, but no longer obeyed. Because the moment has passed. And tonight, your soul is allowed to stop living inside it. And after you begin to see why pain remains long after the moment has passed, a softer kind of strength becomes possible. Not the strength of carrying more. Not the strength of pretending you are untouched. Not the strength of holding everything together while your inner world quietly breaks. But the strength of looking at what has weighed on your spirit and saying with calm honesty, this is no longer mine to hold. There is a freedom that does not arrive with noise. It does not announce itself. It does not come like victory in front of people. It comes quietly, in the privacy of your own heart, when you finally stop gripping what has been draining you. It comes when you stop making a home inside old pain. It comes when you realize that some burdens stayed, not because they belong to you, but because you never gave yourself permission to put them down. For a long time, you may have believed that holding on was the responsible thing to do. Holding on to the memory, holding on to the anger, holding on to the disappointment, holding on to the person, holding on to the version of life you thought should have happened. Holding on to the guilt, because guilt made you feel like you were still connected to what was lost. Holding on to the hurt, because hurt felt like proof that what happened mattered. But there comes a moment when holding on no longer protects the truth. It only prevents peace. This is where the Stoic mind becomes gentle but firm. It does not say, forget everything. It does not say, pretend you were never wounded. It does not say, become cold so nothing can touch you. No, the Stoic way is clearer than that. It says, see it honestly. Learn from it fully. Take what wisdom offers. Then stop carrying what only continues to harm you. That is the difference between memory and burden. Memory says, "This happened." Burden says, "This must keep happening inside me." Memory can teach. Burden can trap. Memory can become wisdom. Burden becomes a chain. And tonight, you are not here to erase your life. You are here to stop letting the heaviest parts of it decide whether your body is allowed to rest. Saying, "This is no longer mine to hold," is not an act of denial. It is an act of clarity. It means you have finally separated what belongs to your growth from what belongs to your suffering. The lesson may still be yours. The boundary may still be yours. The awareness may still be yours. But the constant ache, the endless replay, the secret punishment, the need to keep touching the wound, those may no longer be yours to hold. Some people fear release because they think it means losing control, but often what we call control is only tension. We hold the pain tightly because we believe that if we stop watching it, something worse will happen. We hold resentment because it feels like a shield. We hold guilt because it feels like proof that we have a conscience. We hold regret because it feels like a way to stay close to the life we should have lived. But pain held too long stops being a message. It becomes a weight. And the body knows the difference. The body knows when you are carrying something that has become too heavy for the soul. It shows up in the breath. It shows up in the stomach. It shows up in the tightness behind the eyes. It shows up in the way sleep comes near but never fully enters. Because a mind that keeps holding what it no longer needs sends a quiet signal to the body. Do not soften yet. We are still responsible for this. But you are not responsible for carrying every wound forever. You are not responsible for keeping anger alive so the past feels properly punished. You are not responsible for rehearsing regret so your mistakes know you have not forgotten them. You are not responsible for holding disappointment until someone finally understands how deeply they hurt you. You are not responsible for keeping pain fresh just to prove it was real. The pain was real. You do not need to keep bleeding to prove it. There is a quiet freedom in letting that sentence reach you, because many people keep suffering not because the wound is still open, but because they believe healing would make the wound seem unimportant. They think, if I stop hurting, does that mean it did not matter? No. Healing does not erase meaning. Rest does not erase truth. Peace does not erase what happened. Peace simply says, what happened no longer gets to control every breath I take. This is one of the most powerful forms of release. To let something matter without letting it own you. To let something be true without letting it rule you. To let something shape you without letting it define the rest of your life. That is not weakness. That is wisdom finally returning to the center of your mind. The Stoics believed that peace depends on knowing what is within your control. But there is another part of this teaching that reaches deeply into the night. Peace also depends on knowing what is no longer yours. Not just what you cannot control, but what you no longer need to carry. The old shame, the old anger, the old fear, the old need to explain, the old loyalty to pain, the old version of you who believed that suffering was the price of being good. You can release that version gently. You do not need to hate the part of you that held on. That part was trying to survive. That part did not know another way. That part believed that if it kept the pain close, it could prevent the same wound from returning. So do not shame yourself for carrying it this long. Simply recognize that what helped you survive a difficult season may not be needed in the season where you are learning to sleep again. A coat is useful in winter but heavy in summer. A shield is useful in battle but painful in bed. A burden may have once felt necessary, but tonight it may only be standing between you and rest. So when you say, "This is no longer mine to hold," let it be said without anger. You are not throwing your pain away as if it meant nothing. You are laying it down because your spirit has carried it long enough. You are placing it outside the sacred space where sleep should enter. You are telling your mind, we have honored this. We have learned what we could. We do not need to keep holding it through the night. And there may be a part of you that feels empty at first. This is normal. When you have carried something for a long time, its absence can feel unfamiliar. Peace can feel strange to a mind trained in pressure. Calm can feel unsafe to a body used to bracing. Silence can feel too open when pain has been filling the room for years. But do not mistake unfamiliar peace for danger. Sometimes freedom feels strange simply because you have not lived there in a long time. Let the emptiness become space. Space for breath. Space for rest. Space for a softer thought. Space for the body to loosen. Space for the heart to remember that it is more than what happened to it. Space for a new relationship with the night, where darkness is not where old burdens gather, but where the soul finally returns to itself. Tonight, ask yourself gently, what am I still holding that has already given me its lesson? Wait for the honest answer. It may be a person's opinion. It may be a disappointment. It may be a regret. It may be anger you no longer want but still know too well. It may be the need to be understood by someone who has chosen not to understand. It may be the fear that if you stop carrying the pain, you will lose the part of yourself that survived it. But you will not lose yourself by releasing the burden. You will meet yourself more clearly, because beneath the weight, there is still a quiet you, a steadier you, a wiser you, a you that does not need to keep proving, defending, explaining, punishing, or replaying. A you that can look at the past with calm eyes and say, you taught me, but you do not get to hold me anymore. Let that be your release tonight. Say softly, this sadness is no longer mine to hold tonight. This guilt is no longer mine to hold tonight. This argument is no longer mine to hold tonight. This fear is no longer mine to hold tonight. This pain may have visited me, but it does not own my sleep. And if the mind reaches back for the burden, do not panic. This is how old habits loosen, not all at once, but through repeated release. Each time you notice the weight and put it down again, you teach your mind a new path. Each time you choose rest over rehearsing pain, you weaken the old chain. Each time you say, not tonight, the night becomes more yours. The quiet freedom of release is not that life becomes perfect. It is that your inner world stops being ruled by everything unfinished. It is that you no longer carry what others dropped into your hands without permission. It is that you no longer confuse suffering with loyalty, or exhaustion with love, or tension with control. You are allowed to put it down. Not tomorrow when everything makes sense, not after everyone apologizes, not after the past becomes fair, not after you become a stronger person. Tonight, as you are, with the wound still tender, with the lesson still forming, with the heart still learning how to trust peace again. Because some burdens do not need one more night inside you. Some pain has already taken enough. Some memories have already spoken all they came to say. And some weight can finally be met with one clear, gentle sentence. This is no longer mine to hold. Let the body hear it. Let the breath believe it. Let the mind soften around it. Let the hands open. Let the shoulders drop. Let the heart stop guarding what wisdom has released. And as the night deepens, let sleep come to the space that burden used to occupy. Let peace enter where pain had been sitting. Let silence become safe again. Because the moment you stop holding what was never meant to stay, rest begins to find its way back to you. And once you learn the quiet freedom of saying, this is no longer mine to hold, another truth rises gently in the dark. Some things are not only too heavy to carry, Some things are already gone. Time has already taken them. The moment has passed, the door has closed, the season has ended, the person has changed, left, or become unreachable. Yet the mind still reaches backward, holding empty space, as if it can bring something back by refusing to release it. There is a special kind of pain that comes from arguing with time. It is not loud at first. It begins as a small ache, a memory, a face, a version of life you thought would last, a chance you did not take, a word you wish you could unsay, a season you did not know was ending until it was gone. And when night comes, that ache becomes stronger because silence gives it room to breathe. You may find yourself thinking, if only I had known, if only I had stayed, if only I had left sooner, if only I had loved better, if only I had protected that moment, if only things could return to how they were. But time does not move backward because the heart is not ready. Time does not pause because the mind still needs answers. Time does not return what it has already carried away simply because regret has become heavy. This is one of the hardest places to practice Stoicism. Not when life is easy, not when everything still feels possible, but when something has already been taken by time, and the mind keeps reaching for it as if pain can rebuild it. The Stoics understood that much of human suffering comes from demanding permanence from a world built on change. We want people to remain the same. We want feelings to stay pure. We want chances to wait for us. We want endings to ask for permission before they arrive. We want life to warn us before it takes something we love. But life does not always announce its transitions. Sometimes the last conversation feels ordinary. The last hug feels casual. The last peaceful season feels normal. The last chance looks like just another day. And later, when you realize it was the last, the mind begins to suffer twice. First, from the loss itself. Then, from the refusal to accept that the loss belongs to time now. This refusal is exhausting. It keeps the soul standing at a closed door, listening for footsteps that may never return. It keeps the heart replaying scenes, searching for the exact moment things changed. It keeps the body awake, as if vigilance can reopen what life has already completed. You may call it remembering. You may call it love. You may call it loyalty. But sometimes it is simply the mind trying to hold hands with what no longer has a hand to give. Stoicism does not ask you to stop feeling this. That would not be wisdom. That would be numbness. Stoicism asks you to feel honestly, but not to rebel forever against reality. It teaches you to look at what time has taken and say, this mattered, this shaped me, this was real, but it is no longer here in the same form, and I must not lose the present trying to resurrect the past. There is a deep mercy in accepting what time has taken, not because the loss stops hurting immediately, not because the memory disappears, but because acceptance ends the hidden fight. And sometimes it is not the loss alone that destroys rest. It is the fight against the fact that the loss happened. The mind may say, but I was not ready, and that may be true. Many endings arrive before we are ready. But readiness is not always required for reality to change. A season can end while the heart is still making plans. A person can leave while the mind is still preparing its apology. An opportunity can pass while you are still gathering courage. A younger version of yourself can disappear before you realize how much you will miss them. This is why time feels cruel. It moves without waiting for emotional permission. But the Stoic does not treat time as an enemy. The Stoic sees time as the great teacher of value. Time shows us what cannot be owned. It reminds us that every person, every season, every role, every body, every success, every pain, every joy is passing through. Nothing stays in the exact form forever. Not your sorrow, Not your fear, not your youth, not your grief, not your confusion, not even the version of you that believes this pain will always feel this sharp. When you understand this, you begin to release differently. You stop trying to freeze life. You stop asking the past to become present again. You stop using regret as a way to remain connected to what is gone. You begin to see that love does not require possession. Gratitude does not require return. Memory does not require imprisonment. You can honor what was without demanding that it still be. Some people suffer because they believe releasing what time has taken means betraying it. They think, if I move on, does that mean it meant nothing? No. Moving forward does not erase meaning. Sleeping again does not erase love. Smiling again does not disrespect what was lost. Peace does not mean the past was unimportant. Peace means the past has found its place, and you have stopped dragging it into every unfinished corner of your life. There are things time has taken that you may never fully stop missing. But missing something is different from being ruled by its absence. You can miss a person and still live. You can miss a season and still grow. You can miss who you used to be and still become someone wiser. You can miss the life you thought you would have and still enter the life waiting quietly in front of you. This is the gentle discipline of Stoicism, to stop demanding that life return what is no longer in your control. To stop standing in the night with open hands, begging time to reverse itself. To stop making your sleep a sacrifice to what cannot be retrieved. Ask yourself softly tonight, what has time already taken that I am still trying to carry as if it is here? Maybe it is an old relationship. Maybe it is a lost chance. Maybe it is a version of your family that no longer exists. Maybe it is your younger self. Maybe it is a friendship that slowly faded. Maybe it is a dream that did not unfold the way you hoped. Maybe it is a mistake you keep revisiting because you wish you could meet that moment with today's wisdom. But you cannot carry today's wisdom back into yesterday's body. You cannot place your current understanding into a past version of yourself who did not yet know what you know now. You can only bring that wisdom forward. That is where it belongs, not as a weapon against your old self, but as a light for the path ahead. Time has taken many things, but it has not taken your ability to choose your response tonight. It has not taken your breath. It has not taken this present moment. It has not taken the quiet chance to soften. It has not taken the possibility of rest. And in Stoic teaching, this is where power returns, not in reclaiming what is gone, but in becoming faithful to what remains. So let the memory be a memory. Let the ending be an ending. Let the closed door stay closed tonight, not with bitterness, not with defeat, but with the calm understanding that what has passed through time cannot be forced back by suffering. Say gently, I release what time has already taken. I do not need to chase what has completed its season. I honor what was. I return to what is. I let the past rest, and I allow myself to rest too. And if grief rises, let it rise softly. If regret speaks, hear it without obeying it. If longing appears, place a hand over your heart and remind yourself that longing is not a command to go backward. It is only proof that something mattered. Let it matter without letting it control the night. The body begins to rest when the mind stops reaching for what cannot return. The heart begins to loosen when it understands that release is not rejection. And sleep begins to come when you stop asking time to undo itself before you allow peace. Because what time has taken is no longer yours to hold in the same way. The lesson may remain. The love may remain. The wisdom may remain. But the wait, the fight, the endless reaching, the refusal to accept the ending, those can be placed down now. Tonight, let time keep what belongs to time. Let memory keep what belongs to memory. Let wisdom keep what belongs to wisdom. And let your tired soul keep only what it needs for peace. And after you learn to release what time has already taken, another hidden truth comes forward in the stillness. Sometimes the mind does not overthink because there is a real problem to solve. Sometimes it overthinks because there is a grief underneath the noise, waiting to be noticed. The thoughts keep moving because the heart is afraid of what it may feel if everything becomes quiet. There are nights when your mind seems busy for no clear reason. One thought leads to another. One worry opens the door to 10 more. You remember something small from the day. Then suddenly you are thinking about your whole life. You think about a message, then a person, then a mistake, then an old ending, then a future you cannot control. It feels like the mind is working too hard, but beneath all that motion, something softer may be asking for attention. Grief does not always arrive as tears. Sometimes it arrives as planning. Sometimes it arrives as restlessness. Sometimes it arrives as irritation, numbness, or the strange need to keep checking, fixing, thinking, and preparing. Sometimes grief wears the face of overthinking because the heart does not know how to say, "I miss what I lost." It only knows how to say, "What if? Why? How? What now? What should I have done?" This is why night can feel so difficult. The daytime gives you tasks. The night gives you truth. During the day, grief can hide behind responsibilities. You can cover it with work, with noise, with other people's needs, with scrolling, with movement, with pretending you are fine. But when the world becomes quiet, grief removes its disguise. It does not always come loudly. Sometimes it sits beside you quietly and begins speaking through thoughts that seem unrelated. You may think you are worried about tomorrow, but you may actually be grieving how tired you are of being strong. You may think you are replaying a conversation, but you may actually be grieving the version of that relationship you hoped would exist. You may think you are anxious about the future, but you may actually be grieving the life you thought you would have by now. You may think you are angry, but beneath the anger may be sorrow that never found a safe place to land. The Stoics understood that the mind suffers more when it refuses to look directly at what is true. When grief is not named, it becomes restless. It walks through the mind wearing different masks. It becomes worry about things that are not urgent. It becomes regret about things that cannot be changed. It becomes pressure to solve everything before morning. It becomes the feeling that something is wrong, even when the room is quiet and nothing is happening. But what if nothing is wrong with this moment? What if the mind is simply tired of outrunning sadness? This question can soften something inside you, because overthinking often feels like failure. You may blame yourself and say, "Why can't I stop thinking? Why can't I just sleep? Why does my mind always do this at night?" But maybe your mind is not trying to disturb you. Maybe it is trying to lead you to an emotion you have been avoiding. Maybe it is circling the same thoughts because the real pain has not been held with enough gentleness yet. Grief needs recognition. It does not always need a solution. This is hard for the mind to accept because the mind loves answers. It wants to repair, explain, organize, predict, and control. But grief does not heal by being argued into silence. Grief softens when it is allowed to be honest. It softens when you stop asking it to become practical. It softens when you say, "I see you. I know you are here. You do not have to hide behind all these thoughts tonight." There is a deep difference between thinking about pain and feeling it with kindness. Thinking about pain can become endless. It searches for causes, reasons, people to blame, ways to undo the past, ways to avoid the future. But feeling pain with kindness is quieter. It says, "This hurts. This mattered. This changed me. This is what I have been carrying. It does not need to solve the whole story. It only needs to stop pretending there is no wound. And that is where many people get trapped. They keep overthinking because they are trying not to feel helpless. If the mind keeps moving, it can pretend it is still in control. If it keeps analyzing, it can avoid the deep sadness of accepting that something was lost, something ended, something disappointed you, something did not become what you needed it to be. Overthinking can feel safer than grief, because grief asks you to admit that there are things love, effort, intelligence, and strength could not save. The Stoic path does not shame you for this. It simply invites you back to truth. It asks you to stop fighting shadows and look at what is actually inside you. Not with fear, not with judgment, but with courage. Because to name grief is not to fall apart. It is to stop letting grief control you from behind a mask. Maybe tonight, the thought that keeps returning is not the real problem. Maybe the real ache is underneath it. The unfinished message may not be about the message. It may be about feeling forgotten. The worry about tomorrow may not be about tomorrow. It may be about feeling unsupported. The replay of an old argument may not be about winning. It may be about grieving the fact that someone you loved could not meet you with tenderness. The fear of being alone may not only be about the future. It may be about all the times you had to carry pain without comfort. When you see this, the mind begins to quiet. Not immediately, perhaps, but honestly. Because the mind no longer has to create 10 problems to distract you from one wound. It no longer has to keep building noise around a feeling that only wanted to be seen. This is why naming grief can become a form of mental release. It removes the disguise. It tells the truth. It gives the heart permission to stop performing strength. The Stoics believed that we should meet reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. And grief is part of reality. Loss is part of reality. Disappointment is part of reality. Change is part of reality. The passing of people, seasons, roles, dreams, and versions of ourselves is part of reality. To resist this forever is to live at war with life. But to accept it gently is to begin returning to peace. Acceptance does not mean you like what happened. It does not mean you wanted it. It does not mean it was fair. It means you stop forcing your mind to keep circling the locked door. It means you stop demanding that thought solve what only tenderness can hold. It means you say, this is grief. It is not danger. It is not failure. It is not weakness. It is love, disappointment, change, or loss moving through me. And when grief is allowed to be grief, overthinking loses part of its job. Tonight, you do not need to solve every thought. Instead, gently ask, what sadness is this thought protecting me from? Let the answer come slowly. Maybe there is no answer at first. Maybe there is only a heaviness in the chest, a tightness in the throat, a quiet ache behind the eyes. That is enough. You do not need to turn every feeling into a speech. Sometimes the body speaks in softness before the mind finds words. Place your attention on the breath. Let it become slow. Let it become kind, not forced, not perfect, just present. Say within yourself, I do not have to hide grief inside thinking tonight. I can let what hurts be seen. I can stop chasing every thought and listen to what the heart is really saying. And if tears come, let them come gently. If no tears come, that is also okay. Grief does not always need tears to be real. Sometimes it is only a quiet knowing. Sometimes it is a long exhale. Sometimes it is the body finally admitting, I have been tired for a long time. Meet that moment with compassion. Do not rush it. Do not turn it into another task. Let the heart be human. Because sleep is not only blocked by problems. Sometimes sleep is blocked by emotions that were never allowed to finish speaking. A tired mind may not need more thinking. It may need permission to grieve without shame. It may need to stop being useful, strong, clever, prepared, and controlled for a while. It may need to be held by silence instead of pushed by pressure. So tonight, when overthinking begins, do not immediately believe every thought is a command. Some thoughts are only grief knocking with a different hand. Some worries are only sadness looking for language. Some mental noise is only the heart asking, "Will you finally sit with me?" Sit with it, softly, briefly, kindly. Then release the need to understand everything at once. Say to yourself, "This may be grief wearing the mask of thought. I do not need to chase every worry. I do not need to solve every ache. I see what hurts. I honor what was lost. I let my mind grow quiet because my heart is finally allowed to tell the truth." And as that truth settles, the thoughts may begin to loosen. The questions may lose their sharpness. The body may stop waiting for the next problem. The night may feel less like a place where worries attack, and more like a place where hidden grief is finally allowed to rest. Because sometimes the mind does not need another answer. It needs honesty. It needs softness. It needs the courage to call grief by its real name. And once grief is no longer forced to disguise itself as overthinking, sleep can begin to return. And after you begin to see that overthinking at night can sometimes be grief wearing a disguise, another quiet lesson becomes necessary. Because once pain is finally seen, once it is no longer hiding behind worry, memory, or endless thinking, the next question is this: will you learn from it, or will you keep living inside it? There is a difference, a very deep difference. Learning from pain means you let the wound become a teacher. Living inside pain means you let the wound become your home. One gives you wisdom, the other gives you walls. One helps you walk differently, the other convinces you that you can never walk freely again. One says, "This hurt me, and now I understand something I did not understand before." The other says, "This hurt me, so now everything must be seen through the shape of this hurt." Many people do not notice when pain stops being a lesson and starts becoming an identity. At first, the pain is fresh. It needs attention. It needs care. It needs time. It needs honesty. But slowly, if the mind is not careful, the pain begins to build a world around itself. It decides who you trust. It decides how you love. It decides how much you sleep. It decides what risks you take. It decides what you believe about people, about life, and about yourself. And after a while, you are not only remembering what happened, you are living as if it is still the center of everything. This is why Stoicism is so powerful at night. It does not ask you to deny pain. It asks you to stop giving pain the throne. The Stoic does not say, "Nothing should hurt." The Stoic says, "Yes, this hurt. But now I must ask what this pain is asking me to learn, and where I am using it as a reason to remain trapped." Pain can teach you to choose with more care. But living inside pain teaches you to choose nothing at all. Pain can teach you to speak sooner. But living inside pain makes you silence yourself before anyone even listens. Pain can teach you to notice patterns. But living inside pain makes you suspicious of every person, even those who have not harmed you. Pain can teach you boundaries. But living inside pain builds walls so high that even peace cannot reach you. This is where the mind must become honest, not harsh, honest. Because some of the things we call protection are only fear that has become familiar. Some of the things we call wisdom are only old wounds giving advice. Some of the things we call being realistic are only disappointment trying to make sure we never hope too much again. But pain is not always a reliable guide when it is still bleeding. A wound can warn you, but it can also exaggerate danger. A memory can protect you, but it can also misread the present. A painful past can give you insight, but it can also make you punish people who were not there when you were hurt. This is why learning from pain requires stillness. You cannot learn clearly while you are still living inside the storm. You must step back enough to ask, what is the lesson here? And what is only fear speaking loudly? The lesson may be simple. I need to listen to my unease earlier. I need to stop ignoring small signs. I need to stop abandoning myself to keep others comfortable. I need to be more honest about what I feel. I need to stop placing my peace in hands that have not handled it gently. These lessons are clean. They may be serious, but they do not poison your spirit. They help you move forward with more clarity. But living inside pain sounds different. It says, no one can be trusted. Nothing good lasts. I always lose. I am hard to love. People only stay until they find something better. If I relax, something bad will happen. These are not lessons. These are wounds pretending to be truth. And if you carry them into the night, sleep will feel far away, because the body will believe it is still living in a dangerous world. The Stoics taught that the meaning we attach to events can deepen or soften our suffering. The event may have hurt you, yes, but the story you keep telling yourself about the event can either free you or imprison you. If the story is, this taught me to honor myself, then pain becomes a doorway. But if the story is, this proves I am not safe anywhere, then pain becomes a cage. And many people are sleeping inside cages built from old conclusions. They do not call them cages. They call them personality. They say, this is just how I am now. I do not open up. I expect the worst. I do not need anyone. I am always prepared for disappointment. But beneath those sentences is often a tired heart that once hoped, once trusted, once reached out, once believed, and then got hurt. So now it calls numbness strength. It calls distance peace. It calls fear intelligence. It calls loneliness control. But real peace is not the same as emotional hiding. Learning from pain should make you wiser, not smaller. It should make your choices cleaner, not your world darker. It should make your boundaries stronger, not your heart colder. It should help you recognize danger without expecting danger everywhere. It should teach you to protect your peace without burying your tenderness. This is the balance Stoicism offers. It teaches you to look at pain with clear eyes, but not let pain write every law of your life. It teaches you to accept that pain happened, but not accept the false identity pain tries to give you. It teaches you that you can be changed by something without being controlled by it. You can carry the lesson without carrying the prison. At night, this matters because pain often becomes louder when the world is quiet. The mind begins to replay what happened, but not always to teach you. Sometimes it replays because it wants to keep you inside the old story. It says, look again, feel it again. Remember why you should never relax again. But the Stoic mind gently interrupts and asks, have I already received the lesson? If yes, why am I still sleeping inside the wound? That question may feel uncomfortable, but it is liberating. Because there comes a point when repeating the pain no longer honors what happened. It only keeps your nervous system trapped in yesterday. There comes a point when thinking about the wound no longer brings clarity. It only brings exhaustion. There comes a point when you must say, I have learned what I needed to learn here. I do not need to keep living in this room. Pain may have entered your life without permission, but it does not have to become your permanent address. You are allowed to leave the room where you were wounded. You are allowed to take the lesson and close the door. You are allowed to stop visiting the same memory every night as if your presence there will change the ending. You are allowed to admit that something shaped you without letting it shrink you. You are allowed to become wiser and still become soft again. This does not happen by force. You do not command yourself to be healed. You practice returning to the present. You practice noticing when the past is speaking too loudly. You practice asking whether a thought is teaching you or trapping you. You practice choosing the lesson over the identity. You practice saying, "This pain taught me something, but it does not get to become my whole life." And slowly the mind begins to understand. It no longer has to keep the wound open to keep the lesson alive. It no longer has to replay the betrayal to remember discernment. It no longer has to relive the rejection to remember self-respect. It no longer has to stay angry to remember the boundary. Wisdom can remain without suffering being renewed every night. That is real healing. Not forgetting, not pretending, not becoming untouched, but being able to say, "I know what happened. I know what it taught me. I know how it changed me, and still I am allowed to rest." So tonight, ask yourself gently, am I learning from this pain, or am I living inside it? Do not answer with shame. Answer with honesty. If you are still living inside it, do not attack yourself. You stayed there because some part of you thought it was safer. Thank that part for trying to protect you. Then show it the door. Tell it, we do not have to stay here anymore. We can take the wisdom and leave the suffering behind. Let the body hear that. Let the breath slow down around it. Let the heart feel that it does not have to remain loyal to pain in order to respect what happened. Let the mind loosen its grip on the old story. Say softly, "I keep the lesson. I release the prison. I honor the pain, but I do not live inside it. I am allowed to grow beyond what hurt me." And as night deepens, let that sentence become a quiet path out of the wound, step by step, breath by breath, not rushed, not forced, just steady. The past may still exist behind you, but it does not have to become the room where you sleep. Because learning from pain gives the soul wisdom. Living inside pain only gives the night more weight. And tonight, you are not here to build another home in what hurt you. You are here to receive the lesson, put down the burden, and let sleep meet the part of you that is finally ready to leave. And after you begin to understand the difference between learning from pain and living inside it, another night lesson becomes clear. Pain does not only live in memory. Sometimes it follows you into the most private place you have. It lies down beside you. It takes the space where peace should be. It turns the bed into a meeting place for yesterday's unfinished emotions. And before your body can rest, your mind must learn how to stop letting what is oversleep beside what is still alive. There is a quiet sadness in carrying yesterday into bed. The day has ended, but the mind keeps pulling the old hours closer. The conversation from the morning, the mistake from the afternoon, the disappointment from last week, the shame from years ago, the person who left, the version of you who did not know better, the life that did not unfold the way you hoped. All of it gathers in the dark like invited guests, even though none of it belongs there. And this is how many people lose sleep. Not because the bed is uncomfortable, not because the room is too quiet, but because yesterday has been given too much room. It stretches across the mind. It places its weight on the chest. It turns silence into replay. It turns rest into review. It turns the pillow into a place where the past comes to speak. But your bed was never meant to become a courtroom for yesterday. It was not made for replaying every sentence. It was not made for punishing yourself with old mistakes. It was not made for holding conversations that ended without peace. It was not made for carrying every version of life that disappointed you. The bed is supposed to be a place of return, a place where the body remembers it is not only a worker, not only a survivor, not only a thinker, not only a person responsible for everything, but a living soul that needs repair. The Stoics understood that every day must be allowed to end. Not because everything becomes perfect at sunset, but because the mind must not confuse reflection with imprisonment. To reflect is to look at the day, gather the lesson, and release what no longer needs your attention. To be imprisoned by yesterday is to lie down and let the past continue acting as if it still has authority over your breath. Yesterday may have been painful, it may have been disappointing, it may have shown you something you did not want to see, it may have left you with regret, anger, guilt, or confusion. But yesterday has already had its time. It had its morning, it had its afternoon, it had its evening. It spoke through events, people, choices, and emotions. And now the night is asking for a different kind of loyalty. Not loyalty to what hurt you, but loyalty to the part of you that still needs rest. There is a hidden habit many tired minds carry. They believe that if they keep yesterday close, they will somehow gain control over it. They think, if I replay it one more time, maybe I will understand it. If I think about what I should have done, maybe I will feel prepared. If I hold on to the pain, maybe I will not repeat it. But the past does not become more useful because you sleep beside it. A lesson does not become stronger because you suffer with it all night. Wisdom does not require exhaustion as proof. The Stoic mind asks a simple question: what is yesterday allowed to bring into tonight? Not everything deserves entry. The lesson may enter, the awareness may enter, the correction may enter, the gratitude may enter, but the shame does not need to enter. The endless replay does not need to enter. The old argument does not need to enter. The heavy regret does not need to enter. The face of someone who disturbed your peace does not need to take the place beside you where rest should be. You must begin to guard the bed as a sacred space, not with fear, but with wisdom. Before sleep, you can quietly say, "This is not where yesterday lives." That sentence may sound simple, but it teaches the mind a boundary it may have never learned. It tells memory, "You may exist, but you may not rule this room." It tells regret, "You may teach me, but you may not lie beside me." It tells fear, "You may speak softly, but you may not command the night." Because the truth is, yesterday does not need your whole body to remember it. It does not need your tight jaw. It does not need your stiff shoulders. It does not need your shallow breath. It does not need your restless eyes. It does not need your nervous system standing guard until morning. If there is a lesson, the lesson can be carried lightly. If there is a correction, it can wait for daylight. If there is a step to take, the morning will give you clearer hands. Night is not the best place to fix yesterday. Night is where yesterday must be softened. There are things the mind cannot repair in darkness, because the mind is already tired. A tired mind often sees the past without mercy. It makes mistakes look larger. It makes silence feel dangerous. It makes small failures feel like proof that life is falling apart. It turns one unfinished thing into a prophecy. This is why you must be careful what you allow into your mind at night. Darkness can make yesterday sound more powerful than it really is. The Stoic practice is not to deny yesterday, but to put it in its proper place. Yesterday belongs behind you, not beside you. It belongs in memory, not in your breathing. It belongs in wisdom, not in your nervous system. It belongs in the story of what shaped you, not in the space where your body is trying to heal. You may need to tell yourself this more than once, because the mind has a habit of inviting the past back in. A thought comes, a memory comes, a regret comes, a familiar ache comes, and suddenly yesterday is beside you again, speaking in a voice that feels urgent. But urgency is not always truth. Sometimes urgency is only an old emotion asking for attention. Sometimes it is pain pretending that the night cannot continue until it has been heard again. So hear it once, gently, then set it down. Say, I hear the lesson. I see the pain. I know this mattered. But this bed is for rest, not replay. This night is for healing, not returning. This body is not a place where yesterday gets to continue living. This is not easy at first. When you have spent many nights sleeping beside yesterday, peace can feel unfamiliar. The empty space where the worry used to be may feel strange, but that space is not emptiness. It is room. Room for breath. Room for sleep. Room for the body to soften. Room for the mind to stop performing defense. Room for a quieter relationship with yourself. And maybe this is what you have needed for a long time. Not another explanation, not another replay, not another inner trial, but a boundary with the past, a gentle refusal to let what already happened keep touching the present moment. Your bed should not have to hold every version of you that suffered. The child you once were, the person you were when you made that mistake, the version of you who trusted the wrong person, the version of you who stayed too long, the version of you who did not speak, the version of you who did not know how to leave. They may all be part of your story, but they do not all need to crowd your sleep tonight. Let them rest in time. Let them belong to their season. Let them be honored without being carried into the sheets. You can say to those old versions of yourself, I know you were hurt. I know you did your best with what you knew. I will not abandon you, but I will not let your pain keep my body awake tonight. That is compassion, not drowning in the past, but meeting it with tenderness and then returning to the present. The Stoic returns to what is here, this breath, this room, this night, this body, this moment that has not been taken by yesterday unless the mind hands it over. And tonight, you do not need to hand it over. You can reclaim the bed. You can reclaim the darkness. You can reclaim the quiet. You can let this night become a place where yesterday is not denied, but no longer allowed to occupy the space beside you. So breathe slowly and say, yesterday has ended. I take its lesson, but I do not take its weight. I remember what matters, but I release what hurts without helping. I let the past return to its place. I let my body return to rest. And if yesterday knocks again, do not open the door fully. You can answer with peace. Not tonight. You have had your time. This moment belongs to rest. Let the shoulders loosen. Let the hands open. Let the face soften. Let the body understand that it does not have to sleep beside regret, fear, disappointment, or old pain. Let the mind become less crowded. Let the bed become simple again. A place for breath. A place for stillness. A place for sleep. Because yesterday may have shaped you, but it does not have to lie beside you. It may have taught you, but it does not have to touch every night. It may have hurt you, but it does not have to own the space where healing begins. Tonight, let yesterday sleep somewhere else. Let your soul have the bed back. And after you learn to stop letting yesterday occupy the bed beside you, another kind of release becomes necessary. Because sometimes yesterday does not return as a memory. Sometimes it returns as a question with no clean answer, a question that keeps turning in the mind long after the event has ended. Why did it happen? Why did they change? Why did I not see it sooner? Why did life allow that door to close? Why did I give so much and receive so little? Why did something so painful become part of my story? There are questions that do not ask once. They circle. They knock. They wait until the room is quiet. Then they rise again with the same ache. And the tired mind believes that if it can find the right answer, peace will finally come. So it searches. It studies the past. It rearranges memories. It pulls apart conversations. It looks for hidden signs, missed warnings, secret meanings, and final explanations. But not every question has an answer that will heal you. Some questions only lead to more questions. Some answers arrive too late to change anything. Some people cannot explain themselves clearly because they do not understand themselves deeply. Some endings do not come with a reason that satisfies the heart. Some losses remain painful no matter how much meaning you try to place around them. And sometimes the mind keeps asking not because an answer is near, but because silence feels unbearable. This is where inner peace becomes difficult, because peace often requires something the mind does not naturally like, leaving some things unresolved, not denied, not ignored, not buried, but unresolved, held with humility, placed down without full explanation, allowed to exist without becoming the center of every night. The Stoics understood that a human being suffers deeply when the mind demands control over what life has chosen to leave unclear. We want reasons, we want order, we want the story to make sense. We want pain to explain itself before we release it. But life does not always speak in complete sentences. Sometimes it gives you fragments, sometimes it gives you silence, sometimes it gives you an ending without a closing speech. And when this happens, the mind has a choice. It can keep chasing answers until exhaustion becomes normal, or it can learn the quiet discipline of saying, "I do not know, and still I can rest." That sentence is not weakness, it is one of the highest forms of strength, because the ego wants certainty, the wounded heart wants explanation, the anxious mind wants every unknown filled before morning. But wisdom understands that peace cannot depend on knowing everything. If you require every answer before you sleep, then sleep will always be at the mercy of questions life may never answer. There are people who spend years waiting for one explanation. They wait for the apology that would make the betrayal make sense. They wait for the reason someone left. They wait for the truth behind someone's silence. They wait to understand why a friendship faded, why a family changed, why a dream collapsed, why their effort was not enough. And while they wait, life keeps moving, but their spirit stays seated in the same room, staring at a door that may never open. This is not because they are foolish, it is because the heart wants order after pain. The heart says, if I can understand it, maybe I can survive it better. And yes, understanding can help. Reflection can bring wisdom. Honest questions can guide healing. But there is a point where searching stops being healing and becomes another form of holding on. You must learn to recognize that point. A helpful question brings clarity. It opens a path. It shows you what you need to learn, what boundary you need to set, what truth you need to accept, what action is yours to take. But an endless question keeps you trapped. It does not move you toward wisdom. It only keeps you tied to the same pain, asking life to give you a reason before you give yourself permission to breathe. Inner peace begins when you stop making answers the price of rest. You may never know why someone treated you the way they did, but you can know that their behavior showed you something important. You may never know why a situation ended when it did, but you can know that your life still continues beyond that ending. You may never know why you had to lose something you loved, but you can know that your heart is still here, still breathing, still capable of gentleness, even after loss. The Stoic mind does not pretend uncertainty is easy. It simply refuses to worship it. It says, if I do not know, then I do not know. I will not invent suffering to fill the gap. I will not turn silence into punishment. I will not give the unknown the power to command my night. This is important because unanswered questions can become dangerous in the dark. The mind begins to create stories. It fills empty spaces with fear. It turns silence into rejection. It turns confusion into shame. It turns not knowing into proof that something is wrong with you. But not every unanswered question is a sign of failure. Sometimes it is simply the shape life has taken. Sometimes the answer belongs to someone else's inner world. Sometimes the answer belongs to time. Sometimes the answer is too small to satisfy the pain. Sometimes the answer is not needed for the next step. You do not need every answer to heal. You need enough truth to stop betraying yourself. You need enough clarity to know what is yours. You need enough wisdom to stop returning to what harms you. You need enough courage to move without the full map. You need enough softness to let the heart rest while the mind still does not understand everything. This is hard because the mind often believes that unanswered questions are open wounds. But some wounds remain open not because there is no answer, but because you keep reopening them in search of one. You keep touching the same place. You keep asking the same why. You keep walking back into the same fog with a tired lamp, hoping to see something new. And each night the body pays the price for a search that brings no peace. Tonight the practice is different. Instead of forcing an answer, you create a boundary with the question. You can say, "You may exist, but you may not take my sleep." You can say, "I do not understand this fully, but I will not let confusion become my home." You can say, "This question is real, but it is not more sacred than my rest." That is not avoidance. That is wisdom. Avoidance says, "I refuse to look." Wisdom says, "I have looked enough for tonight." Avoidance runs from truth. Wisdom knows when continued searching has become self-punishment. Avoidance buries pain. Wisdom places pain down gently because the night is not strong enough to carry the whole weight of life. There is a quiet mercy in letting a question remain unanswered. It gives the nervous system permission to stop scanning. It gives the heart permission to stop begging the past for meaning. It gives the mind permission to leave the unfinished sentence alone. It tells your inner world, "We can live without solving this tonight." And as strange as it sounds, this is often when peace begins to return. Not because the answer arrives, but because the demand for the answer loosens. The body softens when it no longer has to hold tension around the unknown. The breath deepens when it no longer has to chase certainty. The heart becomes quieter when it realizes that not knowing does not mean it is unsafe. The Stoics taught that we do not control everything that happens, and we do not control everything that remains unclear, but we can control the posture of the soul toward uncertainty. We can meet the unanswered with patience instead of panic. We can meet confusion with humility instead of obsession. We can meet silence with dignity instead of self-abandonment. So tonight, let some questions sit outside the door. Let them wait for morning, or for time, or for a season when you are stronger. Let them exist without being allowed to rule the bed. You do not need to wrestle every why into submission before sleep can come. You do not need to understand the whole story to close your eyes. You do not need every missing piece to be returned before your body deserves rest. Say softly, "I allow this question to remain unanswered tonight. I release the demand to know everything. I do not need certainty to be at peace. I can rest even while life remains unclear." And if the question rises again, meet it gently. Do not argue. Do not chase. Do not follow it into another hour of searching. Simply say, "Not now." You may remain unanswered, but you may not remain in control. Let the mind loosen around the unknown. Let the heart stop begging for a reason from places that may never speak. Let the body feel that uncertainty is not danger. Let the night become wide enough to hold what is unresolved without turning it into fear. Because inner peace is not the reward for solving every question. Inner peace begins when you stop giving unanswered questions permission to steal the present moment. It begins when you accept that some things may never make complete sense, and still, your soul can be whole. It begins when the mind stops chasing what silence has refused to give, and the body is finally allowed to sleep. And after you learn to let some questions remain unanswered, a stronger kind of peace becomes possible. Because not every burden is heavy because it is painful. Some burdens are heavy because they are sitting in the wrong hands. They belong to someone else's choices, someone else's growth, someone else's honesty, someone else's healing, someone else's responsibility, but somehow they ended up inside your chest, asking you to carry what was never truly yours. There is a quiet exhaustion that comes from holding what belongs to another person. At first you may not notice it. You may call it love. You may call it concern. You may call it loyalty. You may call it being patient, being kind, being mature, being the bigger person. But slowly, something inside you begins to feel crowded. Your mind becomes full of problems you did not create. Your heart becomes tired from emotions you did not choose. Your nights become restless because you are trying to sleep while carrying another person's unfinished work. This is where the Stoic practice becomes deeply freeing. It teaches you to look at every burden and ask, who does this truly belong to? Not who placed it on you. Not who expects you to hold it. Not who will be angry if you release it, but who is actually responsible for it before wisdom, before truth, before life itself. Because many people hand us things that are not ours. Someone refuses to communicate honestly, then gives you the burden of confusion. Someone hurts you, then gives you the burden of understanding them. Someone avoids their own growth, then gives you the burden of being endlessly patient. Someone makes poor choices, then gives you the burden of rescuing them from every consequence. Someone cannot regulate their emotions, then gives you the burden of keeping them calm. And if your heart is soft, you may take these burdens without realizing that kindness has become self-abandonment. But tonight, you are learning a different way. To return a burden to its proper owner does not mean you become cruel. It does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you wish harm on anyone. It means you stop confusing compassion with ownership. You can care about someone's pain without carrying their healing. You can understand someone's struggle without accepting their chaos as your assignment. You can love someone deeply without becoming responsible for the choices they refuse to change. The Stoics believed that peace begins with clear boundaries between what is yours and what is not yours. Your actions are yours. Your words are yours. Your attitude is yours. Your choices are yours. Your effort is yours. Your integrity is yours. But another person's reaction is not yours. Their maturity is not yours. Their self-awareness is not yours. Their willingness to apologize is not yours. Their decision to become better is not yours. Their ability to receive your love properly is not yours. When you forget this, you suffer in places where you have no real power. You may stay awake wondering how to make someone understand what they are not ready to see. You may keep replaying how to fix a relationship that the other person keeps breaking. You may keep carrying guilt for setting a boundary someone did not like. You may keep feeling responsible for the emotions of people who never learned how to sit with themselves. And the mind becomes tired because it is trying to govern territories that do not belong to it. This is one of the most important Stoic lessons for sleep. The soul cannot rest while it is managing worlds outside its control. If your inner life is full of other people's responsibilities, your body will feel like it is still at work, even in bed. You may close your eyes, but your mind is still answering for someone else's silence, someone else's anger, someone else's immaturity, someone else's disappointment, someone else's wound. And tonight, you are allowed to return those things. Return the guilt that came from saying no to something that was draining you. Return the shame someone gave you because they did not like your boundary. Return the pressure to save people who keep choosing the same storm. Return the responsibility for making everyone comfortable. Return the fear of being misunderstood by people who never tried to understand you gently. Return the need to carry peace in relationships where others keep choosing conflict. This is not rejection. This is order. This is placing things where they belong. A burden in the wrong hands becomes suffering. A burden in the right hands becomes responsibility. When you carry someone else's lesson, you do not help them learn. You only exhaust yourself. When you absorb someone else's consequence, you do not protect them. You often delay their growth. When you keep rescuing someone from every discomfort, you may be standing between them and the very wisdom life is trying to teach them. That truth can feel uncomfortable, especially if you are used to being the helper. You may feel guilty when you stop carrying what someone else has always expected you to hold. But guilt is not always a sign that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes guilt is simply the feeling that appears when you begin doing something new. If you were trained to overextend yourself, peace may feel selfish at first. If you were praised for being endlessly available, boundaries may feel like betrayal. If you were taught to measure your worth by how much you can endure, rest may feel undeserved. But the Stoic path is not built on guilt. It is built on truth. And the truth is simple. You are not responsible for living another person's life for them. You are not responsible for carrying every mood in the room. You are not responsible for explaining yourself forever to people committed to misunderstanding. You are not responsible for repairing damage you did not cause. You are not responsible for shrinking your peace so others can avoid their own reflection. This does not mean you abandon love. It means you purify love. Love becomes cleaner when it is no longer mixed with control, fear, guilt, and rescue. Love becomes steadier when it can say, I care about you, but I cannot carry what only you can face. Love becomes wiser when it knows when to help and when to step back. Love becomes healthier when it does not require one soul to disappear so another can remain comfortable. Before sleep, this practice becomes sacred. You look at the burdens gathered in your mind and gently sort them. This worry, is it mine? This shame, is it mine? This anger, is it mine? This responsibility, is it mine? This problem, is it mine to solve tonight? You do not ask these questions to avoid life. You ask them so you can meet life with clarity instead of confusion. Some things will be yours. Keep them with dignity. If you spoke harshly, own your words. If you acted from fear, learn from it. If you neglected something important, plan a wiser step. If you owe someone honesty, prepare to give it. Real responsibility should not be thrown away, but many things will not be yours. Other people's reactions, other people's choices, other people's emotional storms, other people's refusal to grow, other people's version of the story. These must be returned, and when you return them, do it without hatred. Say silently, this belongs to you. I release my false ownership of it. I will not carry this through the night. Let the words be calm. Let them be firm. Let them be honest. You are not pushing the person away with bitterness. You are placing the burden back where wisdom says it belongs. There is peace in proper placement. A chair belongs on the floor, not on your back. A storm belongs in the sky, not in your lungs. A lesson belongs to the person who must learn it, not to the person who keeps trying to prevent discomfort. When things are misplaced, the whole inner world becomes tense. But when things return to their proper owner, something in the body begins to unclench. You may feel this release slowly. The shoulders may drop. The chest may open. The breath may deepen. The mind may grow less crowded. Not because every problem disappeared, but because you are no longer carrying all of them as if they were yours. You have restored order inside yourself. You have made space for sleep. The Stoic practice is not cold, it is deeply compassionate, because it allows each person to meet their own life. It lets you be responsible for your soul, while allowing others to be responsible for theirs. It protects your peace without denying their humanity. It honors love without turning love into emotional slavery. So tonight, as the darkness settles, return every burden to its proper owner. Return the past to time. Return another person's choices to them. Return the future to tomorrow. Return unanswered questions to silence. Return guilt to the place where it was first placed on you unfairly. Return shame to the voices that taught you to carry it. Return fear to the old wound that created it. Return your attention to your breath. Return your body to the bed. Return your mind to the present. Return yourself to yourself. Say gently, I keep what is mine. I release what is not. I take responsibility for my actions, not for everyone's reactions. I return every burden to its proper owner, and I allow my soul to rest. And if the mind reaches for the burden again, do not be angry. Old habits often reach before wisdom can speak. Simply notice the reaching, then return the burden again. Peace is practiced through repetition. Release is learned by returning again and again to what is true. Because sleep becomes possible when the mind is no longer a storage room for other people's lives. Rest returns when the soul stops carrying what wisdom never assigned to it. And tonight, you are allowed to lie down with only what is truly yours and let everything else go back to where it belongs. And after you learn to return every burden to its proper owner, another hidden weight becomes easier to see. Some burdens are not even made from your own actions. They are made from other people's choices, their silence, their dishonesty, their refusal to grow, their decision to walk away, their habit of choosing chaos, then leaving you to carry the emotional cost. And if you take these choices into your night, deep sleep becomes almost impossible, because the soul is trying to rest under a weight it never created. There is a certain kind of exhaustion that comes from suffering for what someone else decided. You did not choose the lie, but you carry the confusion. You did not choose the distance, but you carry the ache. You did not choose the disrespect, but you carry the shame. You did not choose the betrayal, but you carry the question of what you could have done differently. Someone else acted from their own fear, pride, immaturity, or pain, yet somehow your mind becomes the place where their decision keeps living. And night makes this heavier. During the day, you may keep going. You may tell yourself you are fine. You may stay useful, polite, busy, and controlled. But when you lie down, the mind begins to ask why. Why did they do that? Why did they choose that? Why did they not think of you? Why did they not care enough? Why did they make a decision that placed pain in your chest? And beneath all those questions is one deeper ache. Why am I the one losing sleep over what someone else chose? That question matters, because many people cannot sleep deeply, not because they have failed, but because they are still emotionally paying for another person's lack of wisdom. They are carrying the aftershock of choices they did not make. They are trying to understand decisions that came from another person's inner world. They are trying to repair consequences that belong to someone else's character. And the body cannot relax when the mind keeps accepting responsibility for what it did not author. The Stoics would ask you to pause here and separate the event from your ownership of it. Someone may have made a painful choice. That is real. You may have been affected. That is also real. But being affected by someone's choice does not mean you are responsible for carrying it forever. Pain may enter your life through another person's action, but that does not mean their action should become the ruler of your inner world. This is difficult because the heart often tries to make sense of pain by searching itself first. It asks, was I not enough? Did I miss something? Could I have stopped this? Should I have loved differently? Should I have seen the signs earlier? Sometimes there may be something to learn, yes, but not every wound is proof of your failure. Not every loss is a mirror of your worth. Not every person's poor choice is a secret judgment about you. Some people choose from wounds they never healed. Some choose from selfishness. Some choose from fear. Some choose from pride. Some choose from confusion. Some choose the easy path because the honest one would require them to face themselves. Their choice may touch your life, but its roots may have nothing to do with your value, and this is where release begins. You can acknowledge the pain without making yourself the cause of it. You can admit that someone's choice hurt you without turning that hurt into self-blame. You can say, "This affected me," without saying, "This defines me." You can say, "I wish they had chosen differently," without forcing your mind to carry the burden of why they did not. The body needs this truth before it can sleep deeply, because deep sleep requires safety, not perfect circumstances, but enough inner safety for the nervous system to stop guarding. And when you carry other people's choices, the body feels as if danger is still near. It tightens because the mind is still scanning. It braces because the heart is still trying to prevent the past from happening again. It stays half awake because it believes it must keep watch over what someone else might do next. But you cannot guard your way into peace. You cannot stay awake enough to control another person's future choices. You cannot overthink enough to make someone become honest. You cannot lose enough sleep to make someone regret what they did. You cannot carry their decision so completely that it becomes undone. Their choice remains their choice. Your suffering does not rewrite it. This is not easy to accept, but it is freeing. Because once you stop trying to carry another person's decision as if it belongs to you, your energy begins to return. The mind stops treating their behavior like a puzzle you must solve before morning. The heart stops begging for an explanation from a place that may never give one. The body begins to understand, "This hurt me, but it is not mine to hold as guilt." The Stoic practice here is not to become hard. It is to become clear. You do not say, "I do not care." You say, "I care, but I will not carry what someone else chose." You do not say, "It did not hurt." You say, "It hurt, but I will not let their choice become my nightly punishment." You do not say, "They were right." You say, "Their decision belongs to them. My response belongs to me." That is where your power lives. Your power is not in controlling what someone did. Your power is in refusing to let what they did take over the sacred space inside you. Your power is in choosing not to make their immaturity the author of your peace. Your power is in seeing clearly that another person's choice may explain your pain, but it does not have to direct your future. Your power is in returning to yourself. At night, this may require a gentle inner boundary. When the mind brings up their choice, do not follow it into endless questioning. Name it. That was their choice. When the mind tries to blame you for their behavior, answer softly, "I am responsible for my actions, not their character." When the mind asks why again and again, say, "I may not know why, but I know it is not mine to carry tonight." This simple separation can become a doorway into rest, because the mind often suffers from tangled ownership. It takes another person's decision and wraps it around your identity. It says, "They left, so I must not be worth staying for. They lied, so I must have been foolish. They ignored me, so I must not matter. They chose someone else, so I must be lacking." But those are not truths. Those are wounds trying to explain themselves with the wrong evidence. A person's choice reveals something about them, about their capacity, about their state of mind, about their values, about their limitations. It does not automatically reveal the measure of your worth. When someone mishandles you, it may show their hands were not steady. It does not mean your soul was not valuable. Let that reach the tired places in you. You do not need to keep presenting yourself to the past, asking it to confirm that you were enough. You do not need to keep replaying someone's decision as if another round of thinking will give you back the peace it took. You do not need to carry their choice like a stone on your chest. You can place it down, not because it was painless, but because it was never yours to hold as identity. Deep sleep comes when the body no longer feels responsible for what it cannot control. It comes when the mind stops standing guard over someone else's free will. It comes when the heart accepts, with sadness and strength, that people are allowed to make choices and you're allowed to stop being destroyed by them. So tonight, return their choices to them. Return the lie to the person who chose it. Return the silence to the person who hid inside it. Return the betrayal to the person who created it. Return the confusion to the person who refused clarity. Return the emotional cost you have been paying for a decision you did not make. Then bring yourself back. Bring back your breath. Bring back your attention. Bring back your dignity. Bring back your body from the old scene. Bring back your mind from the endless question. Bring back your night from the person who has already taken enough space in your inner life. Say gently, their choice belongs to them. My peace belongs to me. I release the burden of decisions I did not make. I will not carry another person's actions into my sleep. And if the pain rises again, let it rise without becoming your master. Let it be a wave, not a command. Let it remind you that you cared, but not convince you that you must keep suffering. Let it pass through the body without building a home there. Because you cannot sleep deeply while still carrying other people's choices. The mind remains crowded. The body remains alert. The heart remains tied to something outside its control. But once you return those choices to their proper owner, the night begins to soften. The body begins to trust the bed again. The mind begins to understand that peace is not found by carrying what others did. Peace is found by releasing what was never yours to become. And after you learn to stop carrying other people's choices into your sleep, another gentle discipline becomes necessary, because even when you return what is not yours, the mind may still try to end the night by touching every old wound one more time. It may say it only wants to check. It only wants to understand. It only wants to make sure you are not ignoring anything. But sometimes what the mind calls checking is actually reopening. There is a quiet danger in the final hour before sleep. The day is over. The body is tired. The room is still. The mind has no more tasks to hold it in place, so it begins reaching for old pain. It remembers the sentence that hurt, the look that changed something in you, the message that never came, the apology that was never offered, the mistake you keep wishing you could undo, and suddenly, what was resting begins to bleed again. This is how many people end the night. Not with peace, but with emotional reopening. They lie down, tired, then begin pulling at every scar to see if it still hurts. They replay the disappointment. They revisit the betrayal. They rehearse the argument. They measure the loss. They compare the present to the life they thought they would have. And before sleep can come near, the heart has already been taken back into pain. But not every wound needs to be touched tonight. This is a truth the tired mind must learn with kindness. Just because a memory appears does not mean you must enter it. Just because pain rises does not mean it requires a full conversation. Just because something still hurts does not mean tonight is the time to study it. Some wounds are healing best when they are left undisturbed. Some emotions do not need more analysis. They need space. They need quiet. They need you to stop turning rest into another place of emotional labor. The Stoics understood the importance of attention. They knew that what you give attention to grows in power inside you. A thought may arrive without your permission, but whether you feed it is a different matter. A memory may knock at the door, but you do not have to set a table for it. A wound may call your name, but you do not have to follow it into the dark. This does not mean you reject your pain. It means you stop reopening it in the name of healing. There is a difference between tending a wound and disturbing it. Tending is gentle. It cleans. It protects. It allows time to do its work. Disturbing keeps pulling the covering away, checking too often, doubting the process, refusing to let the tender place close. Many emotional wounds stay open, not because they cannot heal, but because the mind keeps returning to them with restless hands. You may tell yourself, I just need to think about it once more. But once becomes another hour. You may say, I just need to understand why it happened. But understanding becomes a maze. You may say, I just need to remember so I do not repeat it. But remembering becomes reliving. And by the time the night is deep, the body has absorbed the pain as if the event were happening again. This is why ending the night well is a practice. It is not something that happens by accident. A peaceful night must be protected, not with fear, but with wisdom. You have to decide that the last place your mind rests before sleep will not be the wound. It will not be the argument. It will not be the shame. It will not be the person who hurt you. It will not be the mistake that still makes your chest tighten. It will be breath. It will be softness. It will be release. It will be the present moment. The mind may resist this because pain often feels urgent, but urgency is not always truth. A wound can feel urgent simply because it is familiar. An old memory can feel important because it has been repeated many times. A regret can feel like responsibility because it has worn that mask for years. But tonight, ask gently, will reopening this help me heal, or will it only make me hurt again? That question is powerful. It separates wisdom from habit. If a thought brings a clear lesson, take the lesson and put the thought down. If a memory brings a needed boundary, keep the boundary and release the replay. If a regret shows you a better action, choose the action and stop whipping the self. But if the thought only brings the same pain without new wisdom, then it does not need your night. The Stoic path teaches that peace is not found by chasing every inner disturbance. Peace is found by training the mind to stop obeying every disturbance. You do not need to answer every thought. You do not need to open every emotional door. You do not need to revisit every past version of yourself before you are allowed to sleep. The night is not asking for a complete emotional investigation. It is asking for surrender. There is a reason old wounds often call louder at bedtime. The mind is tired, and a tired mind has fewer defenses against familiar pain. It can mistake exhaustion for truth. It can turn a small memory into a heavy conclusion. It can make a tender feeling sound like a final sentence. That is why you must be careful with your inner world at night. Do not let your most tired mind hold the sharpest knife. When the night grows quiet, choose gentleness over excavation. You do not have to dig through every buried thing before morning. Some things need daylight. Some things need a clearer mind. Some things need time, counsel, prayer, journaling, conversation, or distance. But bed is not always the place to open everything. Bed is where the body should finally receive the message, nothing more is required of you right now. This is not avoidance. Avoidance says, I will never look at this. Peaceful timing says, I will not open this wound tonight. Avoidance hides from truth. Wisdom chooses the right moment for truth. Avoidance buries pain under distraction. Wisdom places pain gently outside the bedroom door and says, you may be dealt with when I have strength, not when I am trying to sleep. That boundary can change everything. Before the night ends, let the mind perform one gentle closing. Not a harsh command, not a forced silence, just a soft decision. I have felt enough for today. I have thought enough for today. I have carried enough for today. I do not need to reopen what is already tender. I do not need to test the wound to prove it is real. I do not need to suffer again to show that it mattered. The wound mattered, the pain mattered, the loss mattered, the disappointment mattered, but your rest matters too. Some people forget this. They treat their peace as less important than their pain. They give the wound all the attention and give sleep whatever is left. They let the past take the best of their energy, then wonder why the body feels empty. But tonight, let that pattern end. Let your peace become something you protect. Let sleep become something worthy of respect. Let your heart know that it does not have to keep bleeding to deserve compassion. If an old wound appears, meet it with a simple phrase. Not tonight. Not with anger, not with denial, just with calm authority. Not tonight. I see you, but I will not reopen you. I know you hurt, but I will not make you louder. I honor what happened, but I will not relive it in this bed. Then return to the body. This is important. The mind heals not only through thought, but through presence. Feel the weight of the body against the bed. Feel the breath entering and leaving. Let the jaw loosen. Let the shoulders drop. Let the hands open. Let the chest soften. Let the stomach release its holding. Each part of the body can become a doorway out of the wound and back into now. The present moment may feel plain compared to the emotional drama of memory, but it is where peace lives. The past is full of stories. The future is full of guesses. But the present is simple. Breath, body, night, stillness, this room, this moment. This chance to stop harming yourself with what has already harmed you enough. The Stoics believed that each day should be completed with reflection, but reflection must end. You look at the day, you take the lesson, you correct the course, then you stop. You do not keep cutting into the same place looking for more wisdom. You do not keep interrogating the heart when it has already told the truth. You do not keep asking pain to explain itself after it has already given the lesson. Tonight, the work is not to open. The work is to close. Close the old conversation. Close the replay. Close the shame. Close the question that has no answer tonight. Close the door to the person who is not here. Close the scene that keeps pulling you backward. Close the inner file and let the soul rest from managing it. Say softly, I do not reopen old wounds tonight. I keep the wisdom, but I release the ache. I honor my pain without returning to it. I let this night end in peace. And if the wound knocks again, you can answer the same way. Not tonight. Let the repetition become medicine. Let the boundary become familiar. Let the mind slowly learn that every thought does not become a doorway, every memory does not become a journey, every ache does not become a command. This is how you end the night without reopening every emotional wound. You stop treating pain as an emergency. You stop using the dark as a place to revisit what needs gentleness. You stop asking your tired mind to carry out the work of healing when the body is asking for sleep. You trust that what needs attention can receive attention in its proper time, but not at the cost of your rest. Because healing is not only what you face, healing is also what you stop reopening. Peace is not only what you understand, peace is also what you stop feeding. And sleep is not only the absence of thought. Sleep is the quiet reward of a mind that has finally said, enough has been carried today. Nothing more needs to be opened tonight. And after you learn how to end the night without reopening every emotional wound, you may notice another pattern hiding beneath the replay. The mind does not always return to pain because it wants to suffer. Sometimes it returns because it has not accepted the hardest feeling of all, powerlessness. The moment happened. The words were said, the choice was made, the door closed, the outcome arrived, and there was a part of you that could not stop it. That is the ache the mind keeps circling. There are pains that hurt because of what happened, but there are pains that hurt even more because of what you could not control. You could not make someone choose honesty. You could not make someone stay gentle. You could not make the past unfold differently. You could not force life to give you more time. You could not make another person become who you needed them to be. And when the heart meets this kind of helplessness, the mind often refuses to sit still. It begins replaying the scene as if repetition can give it back power. This is why painful memories return at night with such force. The mind says, "Look again, maybe there was a sign you missed. Maybe there was something you could have said. Maybe if you had acted sooner, stayed quieter, spoken louder, loved better, left earlier, waited longer, then the ending would have changed." And without realizing it, you are no longer resting. You are trying to negotiate with a moment that has already passed beyond your reach. Powerlessness is difficult for the human mind because the mind wants to believe there is always something it could have done. Even self-blame can feel safer than helplessness. Blaming yourself gives the illusion of control. It says, "If it was my fault, then maybe I can prevent all pain next time." But accepting powerlessness says something much harder. Some things happened because life, people, timing, character and circumstance moved in ways I could not command. That truth can feel heavy at first, but it is also where freedom begins. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that peace depends on knowing the difference between what is within your control and what is not. But this teaching is not only a nice idea. It becomes real at night when the mind is replaying a painful scene and asking, "How could I have stopped this?" The Stoic answer is not always comforting at first. Sometimes the answer is, "You could not." Not because you were weak, not because you failed, but because another person's will was not yours to govern. Time was not yours to stop. Fate was not yours to rewrite. The whole world was never yours to hold in your hands. And the mind does not like that. So it replays, it reopens, it studies, it searches, it keeps returning to the moment of pain, not always because there is more wisdom there, but because it is trying to escape the feeling of having been unable to control the outcome. It would rather keep working than surrender. It would rather keep thinking than admit that thinking cannot change what happened. It would rather stay awake in analysis than rest inside acceptance. But acceptance is not defeat. Acceptance is the end of false struggle. To accept powerlessness does not mean you approve of what happened. It does not mean you wanted it. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop pretending that suffering tonight can give you power over yesterday. It means you stop treating replay as repair. It means you admit with a tired but honest heart, "This happened. I may not have been able to stop it, but I can choose not to let it keep happening inside me." That sentence is important because the mind often confuses replay with protection. It says, "If I keep thinking about the pain, I will never be caught off guard again." But no amount of replay can create a life with no risk. No amount of worry can guarantee that people will always be honest. No amount of analysis can make love, loss, change, and uncertainty fully safe. At some point, the mind must learn that peace does not come from controlling everything. Peace comes from no longer demanding that everything be controllable before you rest. There is a quiet grief in accepting that you could not change something. Maybe you could not change how someone saw you. Maybe you could not change their decision. Maybe you could not save a relationship from becoming painful. Maybe you could not protect your younger self from what they did not yet understand. Maybe you could not stop a season from ending. Maybe you could not keep life from disappointing you in a way that still echoes. Let that grief be honest. Do not cover it with blame. Do not bury it under endless thought. Do not turn it into another night of punishment. Say gently, "I felt powerless there." That admission may open something in you, because beneath many replays is a part of you that is still standing in that old moment, trying to become powerful enough to change it. And tonight, that part does not need another strategy. It needs compassion. Tell that part, you did not know everything then. You did not control everything then. You were not meant to carry the whole outcome alone. You survived what you could not stop. You are here now. There is dignity in this. A person can be powerless over an event and still powerful in their response. You may not control what happened, but you can choose what you feed tonight. You may not control who left, who misunderstood, who betrayed trust, who refused to change, or what time took from you. But you can choose not to keep building a bed for that pain inside your mind. You can choose not to let the replay become the ruler of your night. You can choose to return to the present, where your power still lives. The present may feel small compared to the past. Just one breath, one room, one body lying down, one night asking for rest. But this is where Stoic strength begins, not in changing the entire story, but in choosing your next inward movement. Will you follow the replay, or will you return to the breath? Will you argue with what cannot be changed, or will you soften into what remains? Will you let powerlessness become panic, or will you let it become surrender? Surrender does not mean giving up on life. It means giving up the impossible task of changing what is already done. It means releasing the demand that the past become different before you allow the body to sleep. It means letting the mind understand that some doors cannot be reopened, and that peace must be found on this side of the door. When the painful replay begins, try not to ask, "How do I stop this thought forever?" That question can create another battle. Instead, ask, "What powerlessness is this thought trying not to feel?" Maybe the answer is simple. I could not make them love me properly. I could not make them tell the truth. I could not go back and protect myself. I could not stop that ending. I could not force life to be fair. Let the answer rise without shame. Then breathe into the space around it. This is how the replay begins to loosen. Not because you solved the past, but because you finally named the feeling under the replay. The mind no longer has to keep creating scenes to avoid one truth. It can stop running from powerlessness and begin learning peace within it. The Stoic art is to hold two truths at once. I was powerless over what happened then, and I am not powerless over how I meet this moment now. This keeps you from falling into despair. It also keeps you from falling into control. It places you in the middle, where wisdom lives. You do not deny the helplessness of the old moment, but you also do not hand your whole life to it. So tonight, if pain replays, do not treat it as a command. See it as a message. It may be saying, there is a place inside you that still wants control over what could not be controlled. Meet that place softly. Let the body know it does not have to keep preparing for an event that has already ended. Let the mind know it does not need to become powerful in the past. Let the heart know it can be safe now, even without changing what happened then. Say quietly, I release the need to control what has already passed. I accept that I could not change everything. I keep the wisdom, but I release the replay. My power is here, in this breath, in this response, in this night. And if the memory rises again, return again. This is not failure. This is practice. Each time you refuse to follow the replay all the way into pain, You teach the mind that power does not live in repetition. Each time you come back to the present, you teach the body that the old moment is not happening now. Each time you accept what you could not control, you reclaim energy that was trapped in fighting the past. Because the mind replays pain when it has not accepted powerlessness, it keeps searching for a way to win against what already happened. But once you allow yourself to admit, "I could not control that," the fight begins to soften. The night becomes less like a battlefield and more like a place of release. You do not need to become powerful over yesterday to be peaceful tonight. You only need to stop asking the past to give back what it cannot return. You only need to lay down the false duty of changing what has already been written. You only need to come back to the one place where your strength still exists, this breath, this body, this moment, this quiet choice to stop replaying pain and start sleeping. And after you begin to accept that some painful moments were outside your control, another kind of peace becomes possible. Because once the mind stops trying to become powerful over yesterday, it must also stop dragging yesterday into court. It must stop gathering evidence against what already happened. It must stop calling old memories to the witness stand. It must stop acting as if one more trial will finally make the past confess. There is a deep exhaustion that comes from prosecuting the past. You lie down at night, but inside, the case begins again. The mind presents the old scene. It points to what they said. It points to what you should have noticed. It points to what you should have done. It brings up the silence, the betrayal, the missed chance, the wrong decision, the pain that did not receive justice. And then it asks the same question it has asked so many nights before. Who is guilty? But the past does not sit in the courtroom. It does not defend itself. It does not correct the record. It does not return with new evidence. It does not break down and say, "You were right, I was wrong. I should have been kinder." The trial happens only inside you, and you are the one losing sleep for a verdict that may never change anything. This is why the mind becomes so tired. It keeps prosecuting people who are not present. It keeps prosecuting the younger version of you who did not know then what you know now. It keeps prosecuting life for not being fair, time for not giving warning, love for not lasting, people for not becoming what they promised. And while all of this may feel justified, it also keeps the soul chained to the very place it wants to leave. The Stoics understood that justice matters, but they also understood that inner peace cannot wait forever for the world to become fair. There are wrongs that may never be admitted. There are wounds that may never receive a perfect apology. There are people who may never understand the damage they caused. There are seasons of life that may never make sense, no matter how many times the mind questions them. If your peace depends on the past standing trial and finally giving you the answer you deserve, then your rest remains trapped in a room that time has already closed. To stop prosecuting the past does not mean you declare it innocent. It does not mean what happened was acceptable. It does not mean the pain was deserved. It does not mean you forget, excuse, or pretend. It means you stop using your own mind as the courtroom where the wound is forced to testify every night. That is the difference. You can know something was wrong without replaying it forever. You can know someone hurt you without giving them a seat in your night. You can know you made a mistake without sentencing yourself to endless shame. You can know life was unfair without making your body carry the anger until morning. The truth can stand without being argued over again and again. Sometimes the mind prosecutes the past because it wants dignity restored. It says, "If I can prove I was hurt, maybe I will finally feel seen." It says, "If I can prove I was right, maybe the pain will feel less meaningless." It says, "If I can prove they were wrong, maybe I can stop feeling small." But the sad truth is that some people will never give you the recognition your heart deserved. Some moments will never hand you the kind of closure that feels complete. And still, your dignity can return through another door. Your dignity returns when you stop begging the past to validate your pain. It returns when you say, "I know what happened." It returns when you stop needing the person who hurt you to agree before you believe yourself. It returns when you stop needing every witness, every explanation, every confession. It returns when your inner voice becomes steady enough to say, "This was real, this hurt, I did not deserve all of it, and now I release the trial because I deserve peace more than I need another hearing." There is great power in that, because the longer you prosecute the past, the more the past remains active. Each replay gives it fresh breath. Each accusation gives it fresh energy. Each imaginary argument gives it a new place in the present. You may think you are punishing what hurt you, but often you are only forcing yourself to stand near it again. The person may be gone, the moment may be over, the season may have ended, yet your mind keeps bringing it back with the force of attention. And attention is life. What you keep placing attention on keeps living inside you. The Stoic practice is not to deny attention to what needs wisdom. It is to stop feeding what only creates suffering. Look once, learn deeply, act wisely, then release the need to keep returning. The past may be a teacher, but it becomes a prison when you turn every night into another interrogation. There is also a hidden cruelty in prosecuting your past self. You look back with today's wisdom and judge the version of you who did not have today's strength, today's knowledge, today's courage, today's clarity. You ask, why did I stay? Why did I trust? Why did I not speak? Why did I not see it? But that version of you was living with the awareness they had then. They were not weak for not knowing what time had not yet taught them. They were not foolish for hoping. They were not worthless for being afraid. They were human, unfinished, learning in real time. To keep dragging that version of yourself into court is not healing. It is punishment. The Stoic way is to correct without cruelty. If your past self made a mistake, learn from it. If they ignored a sign, remember it. If they acted from fear, grow beyond it. But do not keep condemning them for not being the person you became after the lesson. That is unfair. Growth should make you kinder to who you were, not harsher. Wisdom should help you guide the self, not humiliate it. Tonight, you can stop the trial. You can close the file on the old argument. You can remove the witness stand from your mind. You can stop questioning every detail as if the pain must prove itself again. You can let the final verdict be simple. It happened. It hurt. It taught me. It is done for tonight. That does not erase the story. It gives the story its proper place. The mind may resist this because prosecution can feel like control. It feels active. It feels righteous. It feels like you are doing something about the wound. But if the trial has gone on for years and your peace has not increased, maybe it is no longer justice you are practicing. Maybe it is attachment to the wound. Maybe the mind has mistaken repetition for repair. Maybe the heart is ready for a different form of freedom. Freedom may not look dramatic. It may begin with one quiet refusal. I will not argue this case tonight. I will not call that memory forward again. I will not sentence myself for being human. I will not give the person who hurt me another hour of my breath. I will not make sleep wait until the past apologizes. That is how peace enters, not by winning the case but by leaving the courtroom. And leaving the courtroom is not weakness. It is the wisdom to know when the trial has taken more from you than the original event. It is the strength to stop asking a closed chapter to defend itself. It is the courage to accept that some things will remain unfair, but your inner world can still become calm. It is the decision to no longer let old pain be the judge of your night. So as this night deepens, breathe slowly and feel the body begin to release the posture of argument. Let the jaw unclench. Let the shoulders stop holding evidence. Let the chest stop preparing its defense. Let the mind stop sharpening sentences for people who are not listening. Let the heart stop searching for a verdict from people who may never speak truthfully. Say gently, I no longer prosecute the past tonight. I know what happened. I keep the lesson. I release the trial. I do not need a verdict before I rest. And if the mind brings the case back, answer with calm authority. The court is closed. Not because the pain was imaginary, not because the wound did not matter, but because your sleep matters too. Your peace matters too. Your present life matters too. The past had its moment, it had its impact, it had its evidence, it had its lesson, but it doesn't get to keep calling your soul back into court every night. Because the peace that comes from no longer prosecuting the past is not the peace of forgetting, it is the peace of release. It is the peace of knowing the truth without needing to keep proving it. It is the peace of carrying wisdom instead of arguments. It is the peace of finally letting the night be a place of rest, not another trial. And after you stop prosecuting the past, another quiet confusion begins to show itself. Sometimes you are not staying awake because there is still something useful to think through. Sometimes you are staying awake because a part of you believes exhaustion is proof of love. You think that if you keep worrying, replaying, carrying and hurting, it means you care deeply. But there is a point where the mind must learn this truth. Being mentally exhausted does not mean you are emotionally loyal. It may only mean you have forgotten how to let yourself rest. There is a kind of loyalty that looks noble from the outside, but slowly empties the person carrying it. You keep thinking about someone because you loved them. You keep replaying what happened because it mattered. You keep worrying about a family member because you care. You keep carrying an old relationship because your heart does not know how to stop. You keep feeling responsible for another person's sadness because you do not want to be selfish. And at first, this seems like love. It seems like devotion. It seems like the proof that your heart is not cold. But love was never meant to turn your mind into a place of endless suffering. There are people who cannot sleep because they believe peace would be a betrayal. If they stop thinking about the loss, they feel guilty. If they stop worrying about someone, they feel careless. If they stop hurting over what happened, they wonder if it meant nothing. If they begin to feel calm, they almost pull themselves back into pain, as if rest is disrespectful to the story. This is how mental exhaustion gets mistaken for emotional loyalty. The mind says, if I am still tired from this, then it must still matter. But something can matter without destroying you every night. Someone can matter without occupying every thought. A memory can matter without becoming the place where your soul lives. A wound can matter without demanding your sleep as proof. The Stoics understood that devotion without wisdom becomes bondage. To care is human, to love is beautiful, to remember is natural, but to surrender your peace completely to what you cannot control is not virtue, it is confusion. The Stoic heart does not become hard, but it becomes disciplined. It learns that love must have order, concern must have limits, memory must have boundaries. Otherwise, the mind becomes a servant to everything it has ever cared about. And maybe this is what has happened to you in some quiet way. You have been loyal to people, loyal to pain, loyal to regret, loyal to old promises, loyal to versions of life that no longer exist. You have carried their names, their needs, their choices, their absence, their unfinished words, and their emotional weight. You have believed that putting it down would make you less loving. But perhaps putting it down is the first truly loving thing you can do for the part of you that has been suffering silently. There is a difference between honoring and exhausting yourself. Honoring says, "This mattered to me, and I will carry its lesson with tenderness." Exhaustion says, "Because this mattered, I must keep losing myself inside it." Honoring gives the memory a sacred place. Exhaustion gives it the whole house. Honoring allows the heart to stay open. Exhaustion keeps the nervous system trapped in old grief. You may have learned this pattern early. Maybe you were taught that good people worry endlessly. Maybe you saw love expressed through sacrifice, sleeplessness, overgiving, and carrying what others refused to carry. Maybe you were praised when you were the strong one, the available one, the one who did not complain, the one who understood everyone, the one who kept caring even when it cost you deeply. And so, somewhere inside, your mind began to believe, if I am not exhausted, I am not doing enough. But that belief is not wisdom. It is a wound wearing the mask of goodness. Real love does not require you to abandon your own peace. Real loyalty does not demand that your body stay tense all night. Real remembrance does not require you to reopen pain until morning. Real responsibility does not ask you to become mentally unwell so others can feel emotionally held. The people and memories that truly deserve a place in your heart do not need to live there like storms. The Stoic practice here is to ask, is this thought an act of love, or is it an old habit of suffering? This question may reveal more than you expect. Some thoughts are useful. They guide you to reach out, apologize, support, prepare, or act with kindness. But other thoughts only circle the same pain. They do not help the person. They do not repair the past. They do not make you more loving. They only keep your mind tired and your body awake. If your worry cannot help, it does not become more loving by lasting all night. If your grief cannot bring someone back, it does not become more faithful by stealing your sleep. If your regret cannot change the past, it does not become more responsible by punishing you. If your concern cannot control another person's choices, it does not become more noble by destroying your nervous system. There is peace in knowing this. You can care deeply and still sleep. You can miss someone and still rest. You can love someone and still release their choices. You can remember what happened and still let the night be quiet. You can be loyal to a lesson without being loyal to the suffering. You can honor a person without turning your mind into a shrine of pain. You can carry love lightly without carrying anguish as proof. This may feel unfamiliar at first. The mind may accuse you. It may say, how can you sleep when this is still unresolved? How can you relax when someone you love is struggling? How can you feel peace after what happened? But not every accusation inside you deserves obedience. Sometimes the mind is only repeating an old rule, that love must look like pain to be real. Tonight, you are allowed to break that rule. You are allowed to say, my exhaustion does not prove my love. My peace does not erase my care. My rest does not betray what mattered. My sleep does not mean I have forgotten. Let those words soften the guilt. Let them create space around the heart. Let them teach the body that it no longer needs to stay awake to prove devotion. The Stoics believed that what is within your control deserves your effort, and what is outside your control deserves acceptance. But many people give endless effort to what they cannot control and then wonder why their soul feels empty. They try to control another person's healing with worry. They try to control the past with regret. They try to control loss with longing. They try to control uncertainty with overthinking. But the mind was never designed to carry the whole universe through the night. So return to what is yours. Your breath is yours. Your response is yours. Your boundaries are yours. Your next wise action is yours. Your choice to stop rehearsing pain is yours. Your willingness to rest is yours. This is where loyalty must return. Not only loyalty to others, but loyalty to your own soul. Because there is also such a thing as being loyal to yourself, loyal to your peace, loyal to your healing, loyal to your body's need for sleep, loyal to the quiet voice inside you that says, I cannot keep living like this. That loyalty is not selfish, it is necessary. Without it, you become available to everyone except yourself. Before sleep, let the mind sort what love can carry and what love must release. Love can carry prayer. Love can carry gratitude. Love can carry a gentle lesson. Love can carry the decision to act wisely tomorrow. But love does not need to carry panic. Love does not need to carry obsessive replay. Love does not need to carry guilt that has no useful action. Love does not need to carry another person's whole life inside your chest. Say gently, I can care without being consumed. I can love without losing rest. I can remember without reliving. I can be loyal without being mentally exhausted. And if guilt rises, meet it calmly. Do not fight it as an enemy. It may only be the old version of you trying to protect the people and stories that mattered. Thank it for caring, then teach it a new way. Tell it, we do not need exhaustion to prove love anymore. We can hold this with peace. Let the body hear that. Let the shoulders drop from the duty of carrying everyone. Let the jaw soften from the pressure of holding back everything unsaid. Let the chest loosen from the ache of proving care through suffering. Let the hands open as if placing down a weight you once believed made you good. You are still good when you rest. You are still loving when you sleep. You are still faithful when you stop reopening the pain. You are still compassionate when you allow your own mind to become quiet. Because mental exhaustion is not the highest form of loyalty. Peaceful wisdom is. Clear love is. Steady care is. Knowing when to hold and when to release is. And tonight, the most loyal thing you can do may not be to keep thinking, keep hurting, or keep carrying. It may be to let the mind rest so the heart can continue loving without breaking under the weight. And after you begin to see that mental exhaustion is not the same as emotional loyalty, another heavy thing begins to reveal itself. Sometimes what keeps the mind awake is not love. It is resentment, not loud hatred, not open rage, but the quiet, burning feeling that says, I will not let this go, because if I let it go, they get away with it. Resentment can feel powerful at first. It gives the wounded heart something to hold. It gives the mind a sense of control after being hurt, dismissed, betrayed, used, forgotten, or treated unfairly. When someone causes pain, and life does not seem to correct them, resentment steps in like a guard. It says, I will remember, I will keep the record, I will make sure this does not disappear. And for a while, that can feel like justice. But resentment is a dangerous kind of control, because it makes you feel strong while quietly stealing your rest. It keeps the person, the event, and the wound alive inside you. It makes the past feel active. It turns memory into a weapon you keep holding, even when your hand is tired. It tells you that if you release the anger, you are surrendering. It tells you that if you stop replaying what they did, you are saying it did not matter. It tells you that if you sleep peacefully, then somehow the wrong becomes smaller. But the wrong does not become smaller because you rest. And the person who hurt you does not become more accountable because you destroy your own peace at night. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Resentment often punishes the person carrying it more than the person it is aimed at. The one who hurt you may be sleeping. They may have moved on. They may not understand the depth of what they caused. They may not even think about it the way you do. But inside your body, the anger is still burning. Your chest tightens, your thoughts sharpen, your breathing changes, your mind replays the evidence. Your body prepares for a fight that is not happening in the room, and this is why resentment steals sleep. Deep rest requires surrender. Resentment requires vigilance. Sleep asks the body to soften. Resentment asks the body to stay armed. Sleep asks the mind to release control. Resentment says, "No, hold tighter," so the night becomes divided. One part of you wants peace. Another part believes peace would be betrayal. The Stoics understood this conflict deeply. They knew that anger can feel like strength, but often it is a chain. It connects your inner world to the behavior of someone else. It makes your peace dependent on whether they apologize, whether they suffer, whether they understand, whether they change, whether life corrects them in a way that satisfies your pain. But if your peace depends on what happens to another person, then your peace is not free. Resentment says, "I will not release this until they pay." Wisdom says, "I will not keep paying for what they did." That sentence can change the atmosphere of the mind, because when you carry resentment, you are still paying. You pay with sleep, you pay with calm, you pay with mental space, you pay with joy, you pay with your ability to be present. You pay with the quiet moments that could have belonged to healing. The resentment may be directed at them, but the cost is charged to you. This does not mean the pain was not real. It does not mean the betrayal was acceptable. It does not mean you should return to people who harmed you. It does not mean you should silence your boundaries in the name of peace. Stoic release is not weakness. It is not allowing people to walk through your life without consequence. It is choosing not to let their actions continue living inside your body as poison. You can have a boundary without resentment. You can remember the lesson without carrying bitterness. You can say, "That was wrong," without making the wrong the center of your night. You can choose distance, silence, or separation where needed, without rehearsing the injury until your nervous system forgets how to rest. That is real control. Not controlling the other person, not controlling the past, not controlling whether they regret what they did, but controlling what you continue to feed inside yourself, controlling whether the wound receives another hour of your attention, controlling whether anger becomes a visitor or a permanent resident, controlling whether your bed becomes a place of sleep or another room where resentment tells its story. The mind holds resentment because it fears being hurt again. It says, "If I stay angry, I will stay protected." But anger is not the same as protection. Clarity protects you better than resentment. Boundaries protect you better than bitterness. Discernment protects you better than replay. Self-respect protects you better than staying emotionally tied to someone through pain. Resentment keeps a cord between you and the person or event you claim you want to be free from. It may feel like distance, but it is still connection. It keeps pulling your thoughts back. It keeps their name close. It keeps their choices active inside you. And every night you feed it, the cord grows stronger. The Stoic way is to cut the cord through understanding. You do not need to make the person good. You do not need to make the situation fair. You do not need to pretend the damage was small. You simply need to decide that your inner life is too sacred to be occupied forever by what hurt you. There is a difference between justice and resentment. Justice seeks truth, correction, protection, and proper action. Resentment seeks repeated emotional punishment. Justice can guide you toward a boundary, a conversation, a decision, or a necessary ending. Resentment keeps you in the heat of the wound long after the action has been taken or the lesson has been learned. Justice can be calm. Resentment cannot rest. Before sleep, ask yourself gently, is this resentment helping me act wisely, or is it only keeping me tied to what hurt me? If there is an action to take, write it down for daylight. If there is a boundary to set, let tomorrow hold the step. If there is a truth to remember, keep it. But if there is only the same angry replay, the same inner speech, the same fantasy of being proven right, then recognize it for what it is, not control, but captivity. And do not shame yourself for feeling it. Resentment often grows where pain was not honored. It grows where apologies never came. It grows where you had to be strong without being comforted. It grows where your kindness was taken for granted. So meet it with honesty. Say, I know why you are here. You came because something hurt. You came because something felt unfair. You came because a part of me wanted protection. Then gently add, but you cannot be the one who leads me into sleep. That is the turning point. You are not throwing away your dignity, you are recovering it. Because dignity is not found in staying angry forever. Dignity is found in no longer letting another person's wrong continue to govern your inner state. Dignity is found in saying, I saw what happened, I learned, I will protect myself, but I will not keep drinking the bitterness and calling it strength. Tonight, the mind may try to prove why resentment is justified. It may bring up every detail, every word, every moment of unfairness. Let it show you once, then say, I already know, I do not need to reopen the whole case. The truth does not need to be repeated all night to remain true. The lesson does not disappear because you stop rehearsing the pain. The boundary does not weaken because your body rests. You can release resentment without releasing wisdom. This is important. The mind often believes the two are the same. It thinks that if you stop feeling angry, you will forget what you learned. But wisdom can remain calm. Wisdom does not need fire to survive. Wisdom can say, I will not go back there. I will not trust those words again without action. I will not ignore my unease next time. I will not abandon myself to keep peace. These lessons can stay even when resentment leaves. And when resentment leaves, space returns. Space for breath, space for sleep, space for warmth in the heart, space for thoughts that are not built around injury, space for the body to stop bracing, space for the night to feel less like a battlefield and more like a shelter. This space may feel unfamiliar if bitterness has been keeping you company for a long time. But do not mistake the absence of resentment for weakness. It is the beginning of freedom. So as the night grows quiet, place your attention on the part of the body that has been holding the anger. Maybe it is the jaw, maybe it is the chest, maybe it is the stomach, maybe it is the hands. Breathe into that place gently. Let it know the fight does not have to continue tonight. Say softly, I do not need resentment to protect me. I keep the lesson, but I release the bitterness. I choose boundaries over anger. I choose peace over replay. I will not lose another night paying for what someone else did. And if resentment rises again, do not argue with it. Name it. This is old anger. This is pain asking for justice. This is my mind trying to feel control. Then return to the breath. Return to the body. Return to the present. Return to the truth that your peace is not a gift you give to the person who hurt you. Your peace is a gift you return to yourself. Because carrying resentment feels like control, but it steals your rest piece by piece. It keeps the wound awake. It keeps the body guarded. It keeps the past present. And tonight, you do not need that kind of control. You need release. You need sleep. You need the quiet strength to stop letting bitterness stand between your heart and peace. And after you begin to understand how resentment pretends to give control while quietly stealing rest, another deeper release becomes necessary. Because sometimes the thing that keeps you awake is not only what happened. It is the apology that never came, or the apology that came too late, too small, too empty, or too broken to repair what was damaged. The heart waits for words that might never arrive, and even when they do, it sometimes discovers that words alone cannot rebuild what pain has already changed. There is a kind of ache that lives in the space between injury and repair. Someone hurts you, and a part of you begins waiting for them to understand, waiting for them to feel the weight of what they did, waiting for them to come back with humility, waiting for the exact words that would make your chest finally loosen, waiting for an apology strong enough to give back the peace that was taken. But some apologies never come, and some apologies come without honesty. They come quickly, just to end the conversation. They come with excuses attached. They come with blame hidden inside them. They come as, "I'm sorry you feel that way," when what you needed was, "I see what I did." They come as noise, not repair. And then the heart is left in a strange place, because it receives words but not healing. It hears regret but not responsibility. It sees the mouth moving, but the wound still remains. This is where the Stoic way becomes necessary. Because if your peace depends only on an apology, then your peace is placed in someone else's hands. If your sleep depends on another person becoming honest enough, mature enough, humble enough, or aware enough to repair what they broke, then your rest remains tied to a door they may never open, and the night becomes a waiting room for words that may never be spoken. The Stoics would never tell you that apologies are meaningless. A sincere apology can soften pain. It can restore dignity. It can open a path toward repair. It can show that someone has finally seen what they refused to see before. But the Stoics would also remind you that not everything wounded by another person can be healed by that person. Sometimes the apology may belong to them, but the release belongs to you. That is a hard truth, but it is also a freeing one. Because there are things apologies cannot repair. An apology cannot return the years you spent questioning yourself. It cannot give back the nights you lost replaying what happened. It cannot undo the moment your trust changed shape. It cannot erase the fear that came after betrayal. It cannot make the younger version of you feel protected in the moment they were hurt. It cannot always rebuild the relationship exactly as it was. It cannot always return innocence. It cannot always make the heart feel safe again. And when you expect an apology to do all of that, you may find yourself disappointed twice. First by the wound, then by the repair that was not large enough to cover it. This does not mean you should reject apologies. It means you must stop expecting words to carry work that only time, wisdom, boundaries, and self-return can complete. A person can apologize, but they cannot do all your healing for you. They can admit the harm, but they cannot enter your nervous system and remove every trace of it. They can regret their choice, but they cannot always restore the version of you that existed before that choice. Some healing must happen inside the private room of your own soul. And that is not unfair. That is power returning to you. The mind resists this because it wants the person who caused the pain to be the same person who ends the pain. It feels balanced that way. It feels just. It says, you broke it, so you must fix it. And in many cases, accountability is right. People should repair what they damage when they can. But life is not always that clean. Some people are not capable of the repair your heart deserves. Some people do not have the emotional language. Some do not have the courage. Some do not have the humility. Some do not even understand the depth of the wound they created. If you wait for them to become someone they may never become before you sleep, you hand your night to their limitations. The Stoic way asks you to take your night back. It asks you to separate justice from inner freedom. Justice may still require a boundary. It may still require distance. It may still require honesty. It may still require you to stop trusting someone with access they misused. But inner freedom requires something quieter. It requires you to say, even if they never repair this properly, I will not keep letting the wound decide the state of my soul. That sentence is not easy. It may feel like releasing them, but really it is releasing yourself. You are not saying what happened was acceptable. You are saying your peace is no longer waiting for their maturity. You are not saying the apology does not matter. You are saying your healing cannot be held hostage by the apology. You are not saying the pain disappeared. You are saying the pain will no longer be fed every night by the hope that someone else will finally make it whole. There is a deep sadness in accepting that some apologies cannot repair what they broke. Let that sadness be honest. Do not rush past it. Do not shame yourself for needing repair. It is human to want the person who hurt you to see you clearly. It is human to want them to name the wound. It is human to want them to say, I understand now. But when that does not happen, or when it happens in a way that still feels empty, you must not abandon yourself at the door of their apology. You can give yourself the truth they did not give you. You can say, what happened hurt me. You can say, I did not deserve to be treated that way. You can say, I am allowed to protect myself now. You can say, their inability to repair does not make my pain less real. You can say, I do not need to keep reopening this wound to prove it mattered. This kind of self-witnessing is powerful. Sometimes the heart begins to soften, not when the other person finally speaks, but when you finally stop waiting for them to speak before believing your own pain. Your healing begins to move when your own inner voice becomes steady enough to stand beside you. The Stoic does not live begging the world to become fair before practicing peace. The Stoic sees what is missing and still chooses the next wise step. If an apology comes, receive what is sincere and observe what is not. If repair is possible, let actions prove it over time. If repair is not possible, let the lesson remain and let the attachment to their apology loosen. Do not build your sleep around someone else's unfinished conscience. Before night, ask yourself gently, what am I still waiting for someone else to repair inside me? Maybe it is your sense of worth. Maybe it is your trust in yourself. Maybe it is your peace after betrayal. Maybe it is your closure after silence. Maybe it is your dignity after being dismissed. Maybe it is the feeling that you were not foolish for loving, hoping, staying, trying, or believing. Then ask, can I begin returning this to myself tonight? Not all at once, not perfectly, but gently. You can return dignity by believing your own experience. You can return peace by setting a boundary with the memory. You can return trust by choosing more carefully without becoming closed. You can return rest by refusing to let the missing apology occupy the bed. You can return power by deciding that someone else's failure to repair will not become your lifelong sentence. This is not about forcing forgiveness before the heart is ready. It is not about pretending you are healed because you want to sound wise. It is about no longer letting the absence of repair become a second wound. The first wound was what happened. The second wound is the endless waiting for someone else to become the healer of it. And sometimes the second wound lasts longer than the first. Tonight, the work is to end the waiting inside your body. Let the person be responsible for their apology. Let them be responsible for their honesty, their humility, their growth, their repair, or their refusal to repair. But let your peace return to your own hands. Let your sleep stop standing at their door. Let your heart stop begging for words from a mouth that may not know how to speak them properly. Say softly, I release what apologies cannot repair. I do not wait for another person's words before I allow myself peace. I accept the truth of what happened. I keep the lesson. I protect my heart. I let my body rest. And if the mind says, "But they never said sorry," answer gently, "Then I will not let their silence take one more night from me." If the mind says, "But their apology was not enough," answer, "Then I will seek healing beyond their words." If the mind says, "But they should understand," answer, "Maybe they should, but my sleep cannot depend on whether they do." Let that be the doorway. Because there is a peace that comes when you stop waiting for the past to repair itself perfectly. There is a peace that comes when you accept that some people may never give you the words your soul deserved, and still you can stop bleeding in their direction. There is a peace that comes when you stop asking an apology to carry the whole burden of your healing. The apology may be missing, the repair may be incomplete, the story may not end with the justice your heart wanted, but tonight your breath is still yours, your body is still here, your soul is still worthy of rest, and the door to peace does not have to remain locked until someone else finds the courage to knock. So let the night hold you without waiting. Let the body soften without permission from the person who hurt you. Let the mind stop rehearsing the apology it wishes it heard. Let the heart understand that even without perfect repair, release is still possible. Because the Stoic way is not to wait forever for another person to make you whole. It is to gather your peace from the places where it was scattered, return it to your own hands, and sleep as someone who no longer needs the past to apologize before the soul can rest. And now, as this night comes to its quiet close, remember this: you were never meant to carry everything into sleep. Not every burden is yours. Not every question needs an answer tonight. Not every wound needs to be reopened. Not every memory deserves another hour of your peace. Some things belong to the past. Some belong to other people. Some belong to time. Some belong to tomorrow. And some simply need to be placed down because your soul has carried them long enough. The Stoic path does not ask you to become cold. It asks you to become clear. Clear enough to know what is yours and what is not. Clear enough to keep the lesson without keeping the punishment. Clear enough to remember pain without living inside it. Clear enough to stop paying for old wounds with new sleep. Because rest is not weakness. Rest is wisdom. Rest is the quiet decision to stop fighting battles that no longer need your body, your breath, or your night. So tonight, let the old arguments fade. Let the resentment loosen. Let the guilt step back. Let the unanswered questions remain unanswered. Let the apology that never came stop standing between you and peace. Let yesterday leave the bed. Let your shoulders drop. Let your mind unclench. Let your heart whisper, "I have carried enough for today." And if something in this meditation helped you release even one burden tonight, leave a comment with the words, "I'm putting it down." Let it be your quiet signal to yourself and to everyone reading that peace is still possible, even after a long season of carrying too much. Subscribe for more Stoic sleep meditations that help you release the weight, quiet the mind, and return to yourself before morning.